Every single day, millions of people wake up with a silent scream inside their chest. Smiling on the outside, dying a little more inside. Stress, regret, fear of the future, it eats them alive, even when nobody sees it. Maybe it's happening to you too. Maybe you can't even remember the last time you felt truly calm. The world taught you to run faster, worry harder, and cling tighter, but it never taught you how to be free. Tonight, that changes. Tonight, you're going to hear the Buddhist truths that can quietly rip the chains off your mind, not with empty promises, not with fake positivity, but with the kind of wisdom that has survived 2,500 years because it works. Real peace isn't something you chase. It's something you uncover when you finally stop running. And as you listen tonight, something inside you is going to crack open. The heavy pressure will start to lift, and you'll realize the life you want isn't somewhere far away. It's been here all along, buried under the weight of your worries. Stay with me. The deeper we go, the lighter you'll feel. By the end of this journey, you won't just be falling asleep. You'll be waking up to a life without fear. Let's begin. You've carried the weight of fear long enough. You've been tricked into believing that if you just planned better, worried harder, and stayed one step ahead of everything, somehow you could finally breathe. But tonight, something deeper calls you. A chance to loosen your grip. A chance to understand why control is the very thing that's been choking your happiness. Let's go straight to the root of it all. Most people spend their entire lives fighting reality without even realizing it. They get up every morning with a hidden agenda tucked under their arm, a long list of things that must go right. Plans must unfold perfectly. People must behave exactly as expected. The body must stay strong. The future must be predictable. And if any part of that shaky tower wobbles, anxiety floods the system like water through a broken dam. Somewhere deep inside, there is a belief that if everything can just be controlled tightly enough, life will finally feel safe. But life isn't built for control. It's built for movement, change, unpredictability. And trying to control it is like trying to wrestle the ocean into a bottle. The harder you try to force life into a fixed shape, the more you suffer. The tighter you cling, the more pain you create. The mind becomes a clenched fist, always tense, always ready to fight the next invisible threat. Worry becomes a second skin, so familiar that you forget it's even there. And here's the most painful part. The control you think protects you is actually the prison that keeps you restless, fearful, and tired. Real safety doesn't come from control. It comes from understanding. It comes from seeing life as it really is, not as something you own, but as something you participate in. The Buddha taught a radical, gentle truth. Life unfolds through causes and conditions. Everything arises because of everything else. Nothing stands alone. Nothing happens out of nowhere. A flower blooms because of the rain, the sun, the soil, the countless hidden conditions stretching back into endless time. And the same is true for your life. Your thoughts, your emotions, your experiences, all of them arise because of millions of factors dancing together beyond your control. You didn't choose your family, your genetic code, the first words you heard, the smells of your childhood kitchen, the streets you walked to school on. Even your personality traits were shaped long before you ever knew the word me. When you start to truly see this, something inside you begins to soften. the anger at life, the frustration at yourself, the endless blame toward others, they all start to lose their grip. You realize that most of the struggle wasn't because life was cruel. It was because you expected life to obey you. You expected your plans to be the law of the universe. But life never signed that contract. Life belongs to the dance of causes and conditions, not to your personal script. And this is not bad news. This is your freedom. If life is a river, trying to control it is like standing in the middle of it with your hands outstretched, screaming at the current to stop. It won't. It never will. But if you step into the river and let it carry you, guiding your movements gently, adjusting your balance as you go, you realize you don't have to stop the river to survive. You don't have to freeze the flow to find peace. You only have to move with it, to listen to it, to trust it. This is not about giving up. It's about giving up the right things. Giving up the war against reality. Giving up the exhausting fantasy that if you just clench hard enough, you can make everything safe forever. You can't. No one can. Not the richest people, not the strongest leaders, not even the saints and sages who lived before you. The ones who found peace were not the ones who won the battle for control. They were the ones who stopped fighting. When you open your eyes to dependent origination, you stop seeing life as a series of personal attacks or personal victories. You start seeing patterns, interconnections, ripples of cause and effect. Someone snaps at you. Maybe it's not about you at all. Maybe it's a tangled chain of stress, fear, old wounds they don't even understand. You lose your job. Maybe it's the economy shifting, not a sign that you are worthless. Your body aches and slows down. Maybe it's not betrayal, but the natural unfolding of conditions that began before you were even born. This view is not an excuse to be passive. It's an invitation to respond wisely instead of reacting blindly. It's the doorway to compassion for yourself and for everyone else caught in the same restless dance. When you stop needing to control every outcome, your shoulders lower without you even noticing. Your breath deepens, your nights grow quieter. You start living differently, not because life gets easier, but because you are no longer at war with it. You still plant seeds. You still take action. You still care. But you do it with open hands, not clenched fists. You do it knowing that you are one thread in a vast tapestry, not the sole weaver of fate. Somewhere along the way, you realize that the best things that ever happened to you were not the ones you meticulously planned. They were the surprises, the accidents, the moments when causes and conditions ripened beyond your imagination and brought you something you never even knew you needed. Maybe it was a friend who appeared when you were lonely. Maybe it was a job you found after a failure. Maybe it was a realization that came only after heartbreak shattered your old certainties. None of those things were on your careful checklist, and yet they shaped you more than all your careful plans combined. Trusting the dance of causes and conditions doesn't mean you never feel fear again. Fear still visits. Doubt still taps at the window. But you learn not to invite them in for tea. You learn to bow to them as old visitors and let them pass. You learn to rest in something deeper than fear, the quiet, steady current of life itself. You learn to move without needing to know where the path will end. You learn to love without needing to control who stays and who leaves. You learn to breathe without needing guarantees about tomorrow. And here's the strangest, most beautiful part. When you stop trying to control life, life often meets you with a kindness you couldn't have demanded. Opportunities arise that you didn't chase. Healing happens in places you had given up on. Connections blossom where you once saw only walls. None of this can be forced. It flows from trust, not from control. It flows from living in tune with reality, not from trying to bend reality to your will. Right now, there may be parts of your life where you're still gripping tightly. Parts where you whisper to yourself, "I can't let go, or everything will fall apart." Feel the ache of that. Feel the weight of carrying so much responsibility for a world you didn't create. And then, if you're willing, let that part of you breathe. Just a little. Just enough to feel a crack of light where the darkness once ruled. You don't have to let go of everything all at once. You only have to start. You only have to lean in the direction of trust, one moment at a time. This is the gentle collapse of control, not a violent shattering, not a shameful defeat, a soft, merciful surrender, a laying down of arms after a lifetime of fighting a battle you were never meant to win. And in that surrender, there is more strength than you ever knew you had. There is a clarity that burns away the fog. There is a peace that no amount of planning or worry could ever manufacture. Tonight, as your eyes grow heavy and your mind starts to drift, remember this: you were never meant to hold it all together. You were never meant to be the general of the universe. You were meant to dance, to move with life, to trust the river, to feel the wind against your skin and know that even when you don't understand it, life is carrying you exactly where you need to go. Let go. Let the river move you. Let the dance carry you home. Once you stop gripping life with clenched fists, once you start trusting the river to carry you, something even deeper begins to stir inside. You start noticing the hidden weight you've been dragging with you for years, the judgments, the grudges, the silent rage against yourself, against others, against the world, for not being what you needed it to be. If letting go of control was the first freedom, letting go of blame is the second, and it cuts even closer to the bone. Blame feels like armor, but it's actually chains. It promises protection, but it only sinks you deeper into pain. Tonight, you're going to discover what happens when you lay it down and finally walk free. The mind loves to blame. It's one of the oldest tricks for survival. When something hurts, the mind rushes to find someone to point a finger at. Someone must be guilty. Someone must be responsible for this pain. Maybe it's the person who broke a promise. Maybe it's the parent who didn't protect you. Maybe it's the boss who overlooked you. Maybe, when no one else is available, it's you. The mind spins endless stories of who failed, who hurt, who ruined things. It spins these stories because it's terrified of sitting with pain without a neat explanation. It's terrified of uncertainty. So it grabs blame like a sword, swinging wildly, trying to carve the chaos into something it can understand. But the sword of blame cuts both ways. Every time you raise it against the world, it also wounds your own heart. Blaming others keeps you trapped in the role of a victim. It makes you believe your peace depends on whether other people apologize, change, or pay for what they've done. It ties your happiness to forces you cannot control, and blaming yourself poisons the mind even faster. It creates an endless cycle of shame, regret, self-punishment. You keep reliving the same old mistakes, stabbing yourself with memories that cannot be changed. Every time you blame, whether outward or inward, you build another wall around your own heart. Buddhism offers another way, a radical way, a way that feels almost impossible until you taste the freedom it brings. Drop the blame. Drop it all. Not because others were right, not because you were wrong, but because blame itself is the heavy chain that keeps you locked inside suffering. Pain is part of life. Suffering is what happens when you add blame to the pain. There is a deep difference between recognizing cause and effect and laying blame. When something painful happens, it has causes. It arises because of countless conditions, just like everything else. But those causes are not always personal. They are not always malicious. They are not always deliberate. Most of the time, people hurt others because they themselves are hurting. Most of the time, the storm that hit your life wasn't sent with your name written on it. It was just a storm. Blaming it for raining on you is as pointless as blaming the clouds for being clouds. When you begin to see life this way, something extraordinary happens. You stop needing apologies to heal. You stop needing justice to move forward. You stop needing the world to kneel before you and admit its wrongs. You begin to understand that healing is something you can choose, not something you have to wait for. Forgiveness stops being a gift you give others. It becomes a doorway you open for yourself.
Blame tells you that your pain is someone else's responsibility. Liberation tells you that your healing is your own sacred task. Not because you deserve what happened to you, not because you excuse it, but because you refuse to let it define you any longer. You refuse to carry the poison inside your veins any more than necessary. You refuse to chain your joy to anyone else's behavior. This doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It doesn't mean denying injustice, betrayal, or cruelty. It means acknowledging the full reality of what happened, and then choosing not to live inside the wound forever. It means seeing clearly, feeling fully, and then releasing the need to keep circling the same battlefield in your mind. When you let go of blame, you don't lose your power. You reclaim it. You stop being the wounded soldier waiting for someone else to heal you. You become your own healer. You stitch your own heart together, not with bitterness, but with wisdom. You rebuild your spirit, not because the world deserves your forgiveness, but because your soul deserves your freedom. This liberation also means dropping the subtle, constant blaming of life itself. How many hours, how many years are wasted shaking your fist at fate? Blaming your bad luck, your difficult childhood, your broken relationships, your lost opportunities. How many days are ruined by the silent, bitter story, "It shouldn't have been this way"? It's tempting to think that blaming life will somehow shame it into giving you better cards. But life doesn't bargain. Life doesn't play favorites. Life simply moves, endlessly weaving causes and conditions, endlessly offering moments, endlessly shifting and changing. The river flows whether you curse it or bless it. The only thing that changes is how you experience the ride. Dropping blame is like unclenching a fist that has been tight for decades. At first it feels strange, weak, vulnerable. The mind panics. If you let go of blame, who will protect you? Who will defend your wounds? But slowly, you realize
something astonishing. The protection you were seeking was never in blame. It was in clarity. It was in acceptance. It was in standing naked in the truth of your life and realizing you are still here, still breathing, still worthy of joy. Even when others do not understand, even when apologies never come, even when life refuses to explain itself, you are free. Tonight, as you drift closer to sleep, feel for the places inside you that are still clutching blame. The old betrayals, the ancient disappointments, the anger at yourself for what you didn't know, didn't do, didn't say. Feel them rise. Feel them ask to be held, judged, fought over once again. And then, if you're ready, bless them. Bless them like old scars that no longer need to bleed. Bless them and let them go. There is no need to punish yourself for surviving. There is no need to punish others for being lost. The liberation of no blame is not passive. It's not surrender to injustice. It's a fiery, courageous act of reclaiming your heart from the endless courtrooms of your mind. You are not here to be the judge and jury of every wound that touched you. You are here to live, to laugh, to breathe, to love again. You are here to turn the heavy pages of your past and finally start a new chapter, not because the past disappears, but because it no longer defines you. Let it go. Let it all go. Blame only keeps you staring backward. Liberation is the quiet turning of your face toward the rising sun. And tonight, in the silence, with nothing but your own breath to guide you, you can choose it. You can lay down the sword. You can stop guarding the ruins. You can step into the vast, open field of life again, lighter, softer, free. The moment you let go of blame, you begin to feel a strange quietness inside, almost unfamiliar. The usual storms lose their power. The mind, so used to fighting enemies inside and out, suddenly finds itself standing in a wide, open space. But even in this openness, there are two hidden traps waiting to pull you back into suffering: hope and fear, two forces that seem so different but deep down are twin faces of the same chain. To stay free, to stay truly at peace, you have to walk the narrow bridge between them without falling into either side. And tonight, you are going to learn how. Hope makes you chase what isn't here. Fear makes you run from what hasn't come. Both steal your life away. There is a better way, hidden right in the middle. When the mind is no longer blaming, it still searches for something to grip. It looks to the future and starts building castles out of hope. It looks to the shadows and starts digging holes out of fear. Hope whispers promises. Someday you will be happy. Someday you will be safe. Someday everything will finally feel right. Fear screams warnings. Danger is coming. Pain is certain. Loss is inevitable. And trapped between these two voices, the heart tightens again, slowly, silently, without even realizing it has picked up a new form of suffering. Hope is not the sweet blessing it's often made out to be. Hope, for most people, is actually a quiet form of fear. It says, "I am not okay now, but maybe later I will be." It teaches you to chase life like a dog chasing a moving car, always running, never arriving. It pulls your mind into the future, into fantasies and daydreams, spinning endless what-ifs about how things might finally become perfect. But because perfection never arrives, hope slowly turns sour. The dream that once lit your eyes begins to rot inside you. Every unfulfilled hope becomes a seed of bitterness. Every broken dream becomes a doorway to despair. Hope tells you happiness is always just one step out of reach, and so you live your whole life reaching, stretching, straining, and dying a little more each time you miss. Fear, on the other hand, builds prisons before the enemy even arrives. It convinces you that pain is certain, that disappointment is your destiny, that safety is impossible. It shrinks your world. It whispers, "Don't try, don't trust, don't open." Better to stay small and numb than risk the sharp teeth of reality. Fear teaches you to live half alive, always crouching, always defending, always looking over your shoulder at threats that may never come. Fear turns every open door into a trap, every smile into a threat, every step forward into a risk too great to bear. Both hope and fear feed off the same mistake: the belief that peace depends on external conditions. That peace will arrive when you get what you want, or when you avoid what you dread. But Buddhist wisdom cuts through this illusion with terrifying clarity. Peace is not found at the end of hope's road. Safety is not guaranteed by fear's defenses. Peace is here, in the middle, when you stop running toward or away from anything. The middle way, as the Buddha taught, is not a dull grey line between two colourful extremes. It is a vivid, living freedom from the entire game of grasping and rejecting. It is the realization that you are already whole, even if your dreams never come true. That you are already safe, even if your worst fears come to pass. It is standing in the very heart of your life without leaning forward into desire or backward into fear, balanced like a flame that neither flickers too wildly nor dies out from neglect. Living in the middle feels strange at first. It feels empty, almost boring compared to the roller coaster of hope and fear you have known all your life. The highs are lower, the lows are softer. There are fewer grand dramas, fewer desperate prayers. Instead, there is a steady hum beneath everything, a quiet aliveness, a simple joy in each breath, each step, each moment as it is. You start to see that hope and fear were just tricks of the mind, stories you told yourself to avoid facing the radical simplicity of reality. Reality without fantasy. Reality without horror stories. Just this, just now, just being. And once you taste this kind of life, even for a moment, you realize it is worth more than a lifetime of dreams or 1,000 lifetimes of safety. Walking the middle path does not mean you stop caring. It means you care without clinging. You can love without needing guarantees. You can work without being obsessed with results. You can plan without being destroyed when plans fall apart. You can enjoy without needing it to last forever. You can grieve without being drowned. You can hope lightly, like blowing a feather into the air, and if it falls, you can smile and let it go. Hope and fear are both forms of violence against the present moment. They say, "This is not enough." They say, "What is happening now is just an obstacle on the way to something better or worse." They say, "Do not rest, do not trust, do not open." But the middle way invites you to sit down inside your life as it is, not because it is perfect, not because it will stay this way, but because it is the only place real peace can ever be found. When you live in the middle, you discover that life takes care of itself better than your hopes and fears ever could. That joys appear without being chased. That dangers are met and passed through without being rehearsed 1,000 times in advance. That you are stronger than you thought, and softer too. That you can face change without crumbling. That you can let go without losing yourself. Every moment you practice walking the middle way, your mind becomes a little steadier. Your breath becomes a little deeper, your eyes open a little wider, and the endless cycle of chasing and fleeing starts to loosen its grip. You become a little more like the sky, holding clouds without clinging to their shapes, letting storms pass without fearing they will destroy you. Hope says, life will be good when. Fear says, life will be bad if. The middle way says, life is now. Life is this. Life is unfolding in ways you cannot control and do not need to control. Your task is not to guarantee a happy ending. Your task is to meet each moment with courage, with kindness, with clarity. This path is not easy. Sometimes the mind will rebel, screaming that you must grab something, push something away, fix something fast. Sometimes the old dreams will whisper temptations. Sometimes the old fears will howl in the dark. But you can meet them all with the same calm gaze. You can let them pass like clouds across the open sky of your awareness. You can rest deeper and deeper into the middle where the real strength lives. Walking the middle way does not mean you never dream. It means you know your dreams are not your prison. It means you can love your hopes like children playing in a field, laughing when they stumble, blessing them as they run out of sight. It means you can acknowledge your fears like old neighbors, nodding respectfully, but not inviting them in to stay. Tonight, as you listen to the quiet rhythm of your breath, feel for the places where hope is still pulling you forward, or fear is still dragging you back. Feel the tightness they create, the way they shrink or stretch your spirit, and then, gently, invite yourself to settle back into the middle, right here, right now, without needing more, without fearing less. Life, just as it is already a miracle, not because it matches your dreams, not because it avoids your fears, but because it exists at all, because you exist at all, because even in all its imperfection, life continues to offer you this next breath, and this one, and this one. You don't have to fix everything tonight. You don't have to find all the answers. You only have to take one small step closer to the center. One small breath deeper into the moment. One small release of the old chains of hope and fear. Over time, those small steps add up to a freedom larger than anything you ever dared to hope for. Stay here. Stay steady. Stay open. Let the middle path carry you like a gentle current through the vastness of life. And maybe, just maybe, you will find that the peace you spent your whole life chasing was never in the future at all. It was right here, waiting quietly beneath your feet all along. When you begin walking the middle path, something in you starts to quiet down. The desperate chase for more fades, the frantic urge to run from fear softens. But even as you find balance, a quieter enemy lurks in the background. The endless spinning of what-if thoughts, the silent, restless rumination about what could happen, what might go wrong, what needs to be protected at all costs. It doesn't scream like fear or seduce like hope. It gnaws slowly and silently. Tonight, we step into this hidden battlefield and learn how to walk free from it once and for all. Worry tricks you into believing that thinking about every bad possibility will save you. But it's a trap that keeps you stuck in fear without ever making you safer. There's a way out, and it begins right where you are. The mind loves to rehearse disasters. It believes that if it can just predict every danger, it can outsmart pain. So it spins endless stories. What if I lose my job? What if I get sick? What if they leave me? What if I fail? What if everything falls apart? At first, it feels like strategy, like preparation, but after a while, it turns into a sickness of the spirit, a paralysis of the soul. You become trapped, not by the life you are living, but by the life you are imagining. Your feet may be standing safely on the ground, but your heart is drowning in the storms of what-ifs that only exist in your head. Mindfulness cuts through this with the sharpness of a sword and the gentleness of a feather. Mindfulness doesn't argue with the what-ifs. It doesn't fight them or reason with them. It simply notices. This is thinking. This is a mind spinning stories. This is not reality. This is not what's happening right now. And in that simple noticing, the entire nightmare starts to crumble. Mindfulness anchors you back into the only place where life is actually happening. Here, now. This breath, this heartbeat, this moment. The mind will protest. It will scream that you must keep thinking, keep worrying, keep rehearsing. It will tell you that to stop thinking about the future is reckless, dangerous, foolish. But mindfulness sees through the lie. It knows that anxiety is not the price you pay for safety. It is the cost you pay for abandoning the present. When you live in the mind's endless theater of what-ifs, you are always fighting shadows. You prepare for disasters that never come. You grieve losses that never happen. You waste the sweetness of today trying to control a tomorrow that doesn't even exist yet. Every minute lost in what-ifs is a minute stolen from your actual life. And when real challenges do come, and they will, you meet them not with the calm strength of preparation, but with the exhausted panic of someone who has already fought 100 imaginary battles before the real one ever began. Mindfulness invites you to put down the sword, to stop fighting shadows, to come home to the one place where you actually have power, to the present. It teaches you to see thoughts as just thoughts, not prophecies, not threats, not commands, just passing clouds in the sky of your awareness. You don't have to believe everything you think. You don't have to obey every fearful prediction your mind offers. You can notice the what-ifs rising, nod to them like passing strangers, and then return your attention to the ground under your feet, the air in your lungs, the quiet beating of your heart. The more you practice this, the more you start to realize how much life you have been missing, how many sunsets you didn't fully see because you were worrying about a storm that never came, how many smiles you didn't fully receive because you were rehearsing arguments that never happened, how many nights you didn't truly rest because you were planning for disasters that never arrived. Mindfulness is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming present, about living fully in the only place where life ever actually happens. Anxiety feeds on the future.
It cannot survive in the now. When you are truly here, really tasting your food, really feeling the warmth of the sun, really hearing the laughter of a friend, there is no room for fear to grow. Fear needs a gap, a space between now and what might come. When you close that gap by returning fully to the present, fear withers like a plant without water. This doesn't mean you never plan for the future. Planning is useful. Worry is not. Planning happens in a few minutes of clear thought, grounded in the reality of now. Worry drags you into hours of imaginary suffering, drowning you in possibilities that have not and may never come to pass. Mindfulness teaches you to act when needed and to rest when action is done. It teaches you that thinking about something endlessly does not give you more control. It only steals your peace. One of the great secrets of Buddhist teaching is that life becomes lighter, not by solving every problem, but by carrying problems differently. By holding them lightly, knowing that not every question needs an answer tonight. Not every fear needs to be wrestled into submission. Some things can simply be noticed, acknowledged, and left to pass in their own time. Mindfulness trains the mind to step back from its own panic, to observe the rising of a fearful thought without being sucked into it, to feel the surge of anxiety without drowning in it, to see the spinning of what-ifs and gently turn the eyes of the heart back to what is real, what is solid, what is here. The practice can start very small. One breath. Noticing that you are breathing right now and that nothing needs to be added or taken away from this moment. One step. Feeling the ground beneath your feet without rushing ahead into what might happen 5 steps from now. One sound. Listening fully, without layering it with meanings and judgments and projections about the future. Each small return to the present is a victory against the endless pull of anxiety. Over time, something remarkable happens. The mind stops believing its own scary stories so easily. Fearful thoughts lose their authority. The mind becomes more like a river, thoughts flowing by without needing to be chased or fought. You realize that most of the battles you thought you had to fight were just windmills in your mind. You realize that your real strength doesn't come from endless preparation for disaster. It comes from presence, from trust, from the quiet knowing that you can meet each moment as it comes without needing to pre-live every possible tragedy. Anxiety shrinks the world into 1,000 tiny threats. Mindfulness expands it back into a vast, living mystery, a world where not everything is known, not everything is certain, but where beauty and strength and kindness still appear, often when least expected. A world where you are allowed to breathe even without guarantees. A world where you are allowed to rest even without having solved every problem. Right now, as you listen, there may still be parts of your mind spinning what-if stories. Let them spin. You don't need to wrestle them to the ground. You only need to see them for what they are. Habits of a fearful mind, not truths written in stone. You can acknowledge their presence without giving them your full attention. You can turn, gently but firmly, back to the warmth of your own breath, the steady beat of your own heart, the quiet miracle of being here at all. Peace is not found by silencing every thought. Peace is found by no longer believing every thought, especially the ones that drag you into a future made of fear. Mindfulness gives you the power to choose where your attention lives,
And where your attention lives, your life lives. Tonight, you can choose to bring your attention home. Home to the softness of the pillow beneath your head. Home to the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Home to the simple fact that, right now, in this moment, you are safe. You are alive. You are enough. Let the what-ifs float by like leaves on a river. Let them come and go without needing to chase or grab them. Let yourself rest deeper and deeper into the truth of now, because now is where life is. Now is where peace is. Now is where you are free. The more you step out of the world of what-ifs and come back to the real ground of the present moment, the more you start to notice something deeper. Anxiety, tension, fear, they don't just live in the mind. They leave fingerprints on the body too. They tighten the muscles, harden the breath, shrink the heart's openness without asking permission. And if you want real peace, it's not enough to calm your mind. You have to soften the body too. Tonight, you are going to learn how. The body remembers every fear the mind tries to forget. But hidden inside that tightness is a door to freedom you might have never known existed. When the storms of fear, worry, and doubt race through the mind, they don't just vanish into thin air. They sink down into the body like stones dropped into a pond, and if you pay close enough attention, you can feel where they land. A stiff neck, a tight jaw, a chest that feels like it's wrapped in invisible rope, a stomach that twists into knots for no reason you can name. We like to think of the body and mind as separate things, but they are as intimately woven as breath and heartbeat. Every fearful thought leaves a footprint somewhere inside you. Every anxious guess about the future tenses a muscle, narrows a breath, hardens a shoulder. You may think you've calmed your thoughts, but if you do not also calm your body, the fear lingers just beneath the surface, waiting for the next excuse to roar back to life. The body holds what the mind refuses to process. Long after the mind has moved on to new worries, the body remains curled in old defensive postures, stuck in survival mode. You might not even realize it. You might walk through life carrying the weight of battles you barely remember fighting, your body bracing itself against threats that no longer exist. It's exhausting, this silent tension. It burns energy without your consent. It steals your vitality little by little, until even rest feels tiring. Buddhist wisdom teaches that true relaxation is not just a luxury for lazy days. It is a necessary doorway to freedom. A tense body feeds a tense mind. A relaxed body allows the mind to settle like clear water after a storm. When you soften the body, you send a powerful message deep into the nervous system. It's safe now. You don't have to fight anymore. You don't have to prepare for the next blow. You can finally come home to yourself. But softening the body is not about forcing yourself to relax. It's not about ordering your muscles to loosen or commanding your heart to slow down. Force only creates more resistance. Softening happens through attention, through kindness, through the slow, gentle relearning of trust. It starts with noticing where you are tight, not judging it, not trying to fix it, just noticing, feeling the hardness without needing it to disappear immediately. You might start by noticing the way your shoulders creep up toward your ears without you realizing it. You might notice the clench in your jaw, the shallow pull of your breath, the tension curling your toes even in your sleep.
Each place of tightness is not your enemy. It is a messenger. It says, here is where fear was stored. Here is where life got too heavy to carry in the mind alone. When you bring your full, gentle attention to these places, something begins to shift. You are no longer abandoning your body while chasing thoughts. You are no longer treating your body as an afterthought, a machine to be ignored until it breaks down. You are coming back. You are listening. And the body, in its deep wisdom, responds to being heard. Muscles start to soften without being forced. Breath starts to deepen without being controlled. The heart starts to open without being ordered to do so. There are simple practices rooted in Buddhist tradition that help awaken this softness. One is the mindful body scan, where you slowly move your awareness through the body, feeling each part without trying to change anything, just feeling, just noticing. Another is conscious breathing, placing one hand on the chest and one on the belly, and feeling the natural rise and fall with full presence, as if you were cradling a newborn. Another is loving kindness meditation directed toward your own body, silently offering phrases like, may you be safe, may you be relaxed, may you be at ease. These practices are not magic tricks. They are slow, patient re-invitations for the body to remember its natural state of openness. They are ways of saying to yourself over and over, you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to loosen your grip. You are allowed to feel good without earning it through endless vigilance. It may not happen all at once. The body, like any wounded animal, needs time to learn that it is safe again. It needs repeated experiences of gentle attention. It needs to be shown, not told, that it can trust relaxation. At first, when you try to soften, you might notice the mind resisting. You might feel old fears rise up, whispering that if you let your guard down, everything will fall apart. This is normal. It's just the old survival habits trying to protect you. You can thank them for their service and then let them go. Every time you soften even a little, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. Every time you breathe a little deeper, you send a message not just to your muscles, but to your soul. It's okay to live here. It's okay to feel joy again. It's okay to walk through the world without armor. Softening the body also creates space for emotions to move. Many people carry unprocessed grief, anger, fear, locked in the muscles, hidden in the tissues. When the body begins to relax, these old emotions may surface. Tears may come without warning, shivers, yawns, deep sighs. This too is part of the healing. It is not a sign that you are breaking. It is a sign that you are unfreezing, that what was buried is being allowed to flow and be released. Buddhism teaches that clinging is the root of suffering, and nowhere is this more physically visible than in the body's tension. Every clenched fist, every hunched shoulder, every tight breath is a tiny clinging, an unconscious grabbing at safety, control, certainty. When you soften, you are practicing non-clinging, not just as an idea, but as a living reality. You are embodying the wisdom of letting go in your very muscles, bones, and breath. And the beauty of this path is that it doesn't require you to be perfect. You don't have to be a master of relaxation overnight. You don't have to achieve some ideal state of looseness. Every small moment of softening counts. Every time you notice tension and respond with kindness instead of force, you are walking the path. Every time you breathe a little deeper
Instead of collapsing into old habits, you are winning a quiet victory. Right now, as you listen to these words, notice if there's any tightness you can soften, even just a little, maybe in your jaw, maybe in your hands, maybe around your heart. You don't have to pry it open. You don't have to force anything. Just breathe into it. Just say silently, "It's okay. It's okay to soften here. It's okay to be safe here." The more you live this way, the more your entire life begins to shift. Stressful situations still arise, but they pass through you more easily. Fear still visits, but it no longer takes over your body like a thief. Joy flows more freely, unblocked by hidden dams of tension. Relationships deepen because you are no longer armored against intimacy. Creativity flourishes because energy once trapped in fear is now free to dance. This is not a small change. It is a revolution, one quiet breath at a time. A revolution that says, "I will no longer abandon my body. I will no longer live frozen in fear. I will soften, even when it feels vulnerable. I will trust, even when the world feels uncertain. I will live here, fully, without apology." And tonight, as you drift into sleep, let your body be your teacher. Let it show you how to rest, how to release, how to breathe again, not as a soldier braced for battle, but as a human being, finally coming home to the deep peace that was waiting inside you all along. The more you soften the body, the more you realize that tension was never the enemy. It was a message, a sign that something deeper needed your attention. As the muscles loosen and the breath grows steady, something extraordinary happens. You start to notice the space beneath all the noise, and in that space, you begin to see the mind's favorite trick, the way it turns passing discomforts into towering problems, the way it constructs entire mountains out of shifting clouds. Tonight, we are going to tear down those mountains and see what lies beneath. Most of what keeps you awake at night isn't real. It's a story, a ghost, a shape drawn by fear. Once you see through it, you'll wonder how it ever had so much power. Every day, the mind whispers its troubles. This is wrong. That might go wrong. They said the wrong thing. You did the wrong thing. It spins endless webs of problems, each one stickier than the last. And before you even realize it, you are tangled again, trapped in the belief that your life is nothing but a series of broken pieces that need fixing. You move from one worry to the next like a tired traveler lost in a maze, searching for the exit, only to find more walls. But the walls were never solid. The problems were never permanent. They were never as real as they seemed. They were constructs, mental stories built out of fear, habit, and misunderstanding. Buddhism teaches this with a clarity that can feel almost shocking the first time you really see it. Your problems do not exist independently. They have no self. They have no core. They arise from the way you perceive and label experiences, not from the experiences themselves. Look closely at any so-called problem. Really look. Peel back the layers. You lost your job. Painful? Of course. Difficult? Yes. But is losing a job a thing that floats in the air, solid and permanent, weighing down your life forever? Or is it a series of conditions, a change in income, a shift in daily routine, a new set of decisions to make? Without the label problem, what you are left with are facts, changes, movement. The suffering comes not from the change itself, but from the mind's furious resistance to it. The story that screams, "This shouldn't be happening." The same is true for heartbreak, for failure, for disappointment. Pain arises, as it must in any living body. But suffering is what the mind builds on top of pain. Suffering is the endless replaying of what happened, the endless judging of how it could have been different, the endless blaming and shaming and fearing. Suffering turns a passing storm into a permanent winter, and it does so through the mistaken belief that problems are fixed realities, not shifting mental weather. Once you begin to see the emptiness of problems, a strange lightness enters your life. Problems still arise, just as storms still gather, but you stop building houses inside them. You stop carving them into monuments. You learn to greet them like passing guests. You feel the sting, the sadness, the uncertainty, and you let them pass. You no longer confuse the temporary discomfort of life with the endless suffering of a mind obsessed with control. Every time you label and experience a problem, you create a wall between yourself and peace. You tell yourself, "I cannot be happy until this is fixed. I cannot be free until this is solved. I cannot breathe until this is over." But life does not wait for your problems to be solved. Life is always unfolding here and now, with or without your permission. It invites you to live even in the middle of uncertainty, even with unanswered questions, even while the so-called problems remain unresolved. This does not mean you ignore pain or pretend everything is fine. It means you stop giving pain extra weight by turning it into an identity. It means you stop wrapping yourself in the story that says you are a victim of life. You are not your problems. You are not the labels your mind sticks on every passing discomfort. You are the open space in which problems come and go, like waves on a vast ocean. Buddhist teachings speak often of the concept of emptiness, not emptiness as nothingness, but emptiness as interdependence, fluidity, freedom. Problems are empty in this way. They are not fixed objects waiting to crush you. They are shifting patterns born of countless causes and conditions, just like everything else. They arise, they change, they pass. When you cling to them, you suffer. When you see through them, you are free. One way to see this clearly is to notice how problems look different depending on your state of mind. What feels like an unbearable crisis one day feels manageable the next. The situation has not changed, but your relationship to it has. The problem was never in the event. It was in the mind's rigid grip, the mind's insistence that life conform to its demands. Another way to see it is to look at how different people respond to the same situation. One person loses a job and falls into despair. Another sees it as a chance for a new beginning. One person faces illness with bitterness. Another meets it with grace. If problems were truly solid, truly real in the way we think they are, everyone would react the same way. But they don't. Because what we call problems are not fixed realities. They are interpretations. They are constructions of mind. This understanding is not meant to make you careless or passive. It is meant to free you from unnecessary suffering. It is meant to show you that peace is available even when challenges arise. It is meant to teach you that you can face difficulty without losing yourself in it. That you can meet life with open hands, not clenched fists. Tonight, as you listen and breathe, notice any problems you have been carrying like heavy stones. Notice how solid they feel.
Then ask yourself quietly, what is this made of? Is it made of unchangeable pain, or is it made of thoughts, fears, resistance? Can I let it be what it is without making it bigger? Can I let it pass through me like a wave, knowing I am the ocean, not the storm? The mind will resist. It will insist that your problems are too big, too real, too dangerous to be let go of so easily. It will tell you that vigilance is your only safety, but vigilance is not peace. Vigilance is not freedom. Vigilance is just another prison, built out of fear and maintained through habit. Freedom begins the moment you stop believing that you must solve everything before you are allowed to rest. Freedom begins the moment you see a problem arise in the mind and say, just a thought, just a cloud, just another ripple in the endless sea. And the more you live this way, the lighter you become. Problems still visit, but they no longer define you. Worries still knock at the door, but you are not obligated to invite them in. You move through life not as a victim of endless emergencies, but as a steady traveler on a wide, changing road. There is nothing you must fix tonight. There is nothing you must solve before you are allowed to breathe easily again. Life will continue to unfold. Problems will continue to arise and pass. Your task is not to control this dance. Your task is to see through the illusion, to know that behind every storm, the sky remains untouched. Behind every worry, the heart remains whole. Tonight, as you close your eyes, let the so-called problems float away. Let the labels peel off. Let the urgency dissolve. Return to the simple miracle of being here, breathing, living, free. The moment you start seeing that most problems are built from thought and not from solid reality, a new kind of space opens inside you. A space where life is no longer something you are battling, but something you are walking through. And in that space, another possibility rises. A way of meeting difficulty that doesn't just reduce suffering, but actually transforms it into fuel for growth. Tonight, we walk straight into that possibility with open hearts. Life isn't hurting you to punish you. It's calling you to become something more than you were yesterday. And the way you answer changes everything. Difficulty is not a mistake. It is not proof that you have failed. It is not evidence that you are broken or unlucky or cursed. Difficulty is the training ground of the soul. It is the fire that softens what is rigid in you, the wind that clears away what is dead, the storm that waters seeds you didn't even know you had planted. But when pain hits, the first instinct is almost always the same. Shrink away, brace for impact, blame yourself, blame others, resist, retreat. And in that resistance, what could have been a doorway becomes a wall. The compassionate reframe is the art of seeing difficulty differently. It is not pretending that pain is pleasant. It is not forcing a smile through clenched teeth. It is the radical act of meeting life's hardest moments with the question, what is this teaching me? How can this break me open instead of shut me down? How can this deepen my compassion, strengthen my courage, sharpen my clarity? When something painful happens, the mind usually leaps to judgment. This is bad. This is unfair. This must be avoided. But if you pause, if you breathe, if you soften your gaze, you may begin to see something else. You may begin to see that every hardship carries within it the seeds of a new strength. Every disappointment is carving out space for deeper wisdom. Every loss is hollowing a place inside you that someday can hold even greater love. Compassion for yourself in difficulty means refusing to add cruelty to pain. It means recognizing that suffering already hurts enough without you piling judgment and shame on top of it. It means speaking to yourself the way you would speak to a dear friend who is hurting, gently, kindly, patiently. It means allowing yourself to be human, to stumble, to grieve, to feel lost, without making it mean that you are worthless or weak. Compassion for others in difficulty means remembering that everyone is carrying battles you cannot see, that anger often hides heartbreak, that cruelty often masks fear, that distance often shields vulnerability. When you meet others' difficulties with compassion instead of judgment, you stop taking everything so personally. You stop reacting to surface behavior and start seeing the deeper currents underneath. And this seeing changes you, it softens you, it opens you to connection even in the middle of chaos. Every difficulty contains two paths. One leads to bitterness, contraction, isolation. The other leads to wisdom, expansion, love. The path you walk depends not on what happens to you, but on how you choose to meet it. And choice is the key word here. You cannot always choose what life gives you, but you can choose how you frame it. You can choose what story you tell yourself about it. You can choose whether it becomes a wound you carry or a root that anchors you deeper. The compassionate reframe asks you to trust that even when you cannot see the purpose of a struggle, purpose still exists. It asks you to trust that life is not wasting your pain, that every tear, every loss, every shattered expectation is being woven into a tapestry you cannot yet see the full picture of. It asks you to walk forward even when the ground feels broken, trusting that growth is happening underneath the surface. This is not easy. It requires deep courage. It requires patience when everything inside you wants quick answers. It requires humility when pride screams for certainty. It requires tenderness when old habits tell you to harden your heart. But every time you meet difficulty with compassion, you change something fundamental in yourself. You stop being merely a survivor. You become a student of life itself. You stop fighting the weather and start learning to sail. There will be times when the compassionate reframe feels impossible. Times when the pain is too fresh, the wound too raw, the loss too deep. In those times, compassion means not forcing yourself to reframe prematurely. It means holding space for grief, for anger, for confusion. It means allowing yourself to be exactly where you are without rushing to find meaning. Compassion doesn't hurry healing. It trusts that understanding will come in its own time, like seeds breaking open in the dark soil before they ever reach the light. One day, often when you least expect it, you may look back on a time you thought would destroy you and realize it shaped you into someone stronger, kinder, braver. One day, you may thank the storm for the roots it helped you grow. One day, you may see that the breaking was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a deeper chapter. The compassionate reframe also teaches you to honor small difficulties, not just the major ones. Traffic jams, rude comments, cancelled plans, all of them offer tiny invitations to practice patience, forgiveness, flexibility. Every small irritation is a chance to grow micro-strengths that build resilience for the bigger storms.
Every small challenge is a rehearsal for the deeper acts of courage and love that life will someday ask of you. Compassion does not mean passivity. It does not mean accepting injustice or tolerating abuse. It means responding from wisdom rather than reactivity. It means standing firm without hardening your heart. It means setting boundaries without losing your kindness. It means refusing to let pain make you smaller, meaner, or more fearful. It means letting pain deepen your roots instead of scorch your branches. Right now, as you listen, think of a difficulty you are carrying. Something that feels heavy, unfair, unwanted. Feel the weight of it fully, without pretending it doesn't hurt. Then, gently, ask yourself, what if this is not punishment, but invitation? What if life is not trying to crush me, but trying to carve out more space in me for wisdom, for courage, for love? What if this is not the end of my story, but the place where my soul learns to rise? You don't have to answer right away. You don't have to force yourself to see the gift in every wound tonight. You only have to be willing to believe that such a gift might exist. That willingness alone cracks open the door to transformation. That willingness alone plants the seeds of a new way of living. Every difficulty, reframed with compassion, becomes a doorway to deeper freedom. Every pain, met with softness instead of harshness, becomes a teacher instead of a jailer. Every stumble, seen through the eyes of kindness, becomes part of the dance instead of a reason to quit. And maybe the greatest secret of all is this: the more you practice compassion toward your own struggles, the more you become a refuge for others. The more you hold your own pain with tenderness, the more you can hold others' pain without judgment. The more you forgive yourself for your humanity, the more space you create for the humanity of everyone around you. Tonight, as you rest, let your difficulties soften. Let them be heavy if they must, but do not let them be enemies. Hold them like old friends you are just beginning to understand. Listen to what they are teaching. Trust that even now, even here, life is shaping you in ways you cannot yet see. And in that quiet trust, you will find a peace that no storm can take away. Once you begin to meet your difficulties with compassion, you realize something unexpected. Life stops feeling like a series of battles you have to win. It starts feeling more like a river you can float along, even when the currents grow rough. But even with compassion in your heart, there is still a force that can pull you back into panic if you are not careful. The force of speed, the habit of rushing, reacting, forcing. Tonight, we are going to slow everything down. And in that slowness, you will find a kind of strength you may have forgotten you had. Rushing is a thief. It steals your clarity, your breath, your peace. Slowness doesn't mean falling behind. It means finally moving in a way that your soul can keep up. There is a deep lie buried in modern life, a lie so common that most people don't even realize they are living by it. The lie says that faster is better, that urgency means importance, that rushing through decisions, conversations, days and years is the price of success, the mark of commitment, the proof that you are doing life right. But if you really stop and look, you will see the truth hiding in plain sight. Rushing doesn't bring more life. It brings less. It shrinks your awareness. It scrambles your heart. It scatters your energy across 1,000 frantic motions, leaving you tired and empty even when you have accomplished nothing real. Deliberate slowness is not laziness. It is not weakness. It is the forgotten art of living at the speed of wisdom. Moving slowly is how you reclaim the ability to actually see what you are doing, hear what you are saying, feel what you are feeling, choose what you are becoming. Moving slowly doesn't mean you stop. It means you stop letting life drag you by the hair through one mindless reaction after another. When you move slowly, you enter the present moment more fully. You become aware of the tension that builds before you snap at someone. You notice the anxious pull before you say yes to something you don't want. You see the fear before it drives you into a rushed decision you will regret later. Slowness gives you back the power to respond instead of react, to choose your path instead of being pushed down a path by old habits and hidden fears. There is a reason Buddhist monks walk so slowly during walking meditation. It's not because they have nothing to do. It's because they understand that every step contains the whole of life, that every movement deserves full attention. That speed often comes from fear, the fear of missing out, the fear of failure, the fear of not being enough. And fear, when it rules your movements, leads only to more fear. When you begin to practice deliberate slowness, it feels almost unnatural at first. Everything inside you wants to hurry. The mind shouts, "Hurry up, you're falling behind. Everyone else is moving faster. You should be doing more, deciding faster, speaking quicker, moving harder." But if you listen beneath that shouting, you hear something quieter and truer. The part of you that longs to breathe again, the part that is tired of running, the part that knows deep down that faster has never made you happier. Slowness is an act of rebellion against the madness of urgency. It is a way of stepping off the spinning wheel and reclaiming your own rhythm. It is a way of saying, "I will not be stampeded by fear. I will not be bullied by the clock. I will move through my life with the dignity and depth that my soul deserves." Start small. Begin by moving a little slower than usual when you wake up in the morning. Feel the weight of your body rising out of bed. Notice the texture of the air on your skin. Brush your teeth with full awareness of the sensations. Eat your breakfast without checking your phone. Each small act of slowness is a seed planted deep in the soil of your being. When conversations arise, practice speaking slowly, not with fake slowness, but with real presence. Feel the words forming in your mouth. Let there be space between thoughts. Listen fully before responding. Notice how different it feels when you are not racing to fill every silence or defend every point. Notice how much more clearly you hear others and yourself when you are not rushing. When decisions must be made, resist the pressure to decide immediately unless truly necessary. Breathe, reflect. Ask yourself, am I choosing from fear or from clarity? Slowness gives space for wisdom to rise. Slowness protects you from panic. Slowness allows intuition to catch up with logic, allowing choices to be made from wholeness instead of fragmentation. Even in physical movement, practice deliberate slowness. Walk with full awareness of each step. Notice the rise and fall of your foot. Feel the way your body balances and shifts with each motion. This is not wasted time. This is life lived fully. This is peace discovered not by sitting still, but by moving with conscious grace. Deliberate slowness dismantles the myth that urgency makes you more valuable. You are not valuable because you are busy. You are not worthy because you are fast. You are valuable simply because you are alive. You are worthy simply because you exist. Slowness allows you to feel the sacredness of that truth, to live from it, instead of constantly trying to prove it through frantic effort.
There will be times when the pressure to speed up feels overwhelming. When the world demands answers now, actions now, results now. In those moments, remember, very few true emergencies require immediate reaction. Most urgency is manufactured. Most deadlines are illusions. Most panic is optional. And every time you choose slowness over frenzy, you are practicing faith, not in a perfect outcome, but in your own ability to meet life wisely, steadily, bravely. Slowness teaches you to trust the unfolding of life, to trust that you do not need to force everything into place, to trust that what is meant for you will not pass you by simply because you pause to breathe. It teaches you to honor the seasons of your own energy, to rest when needed, to act when ready, to trust the natural tides of engagement and retreat. Panic shrinks the mind. It narrows the world to a single desperate focus: survive, control, fix. Slowness expands the mind. It opens the world to wider possibilities. Observe, reflect, trust. In the space that slowness creates, new insights can emerge. New paths can be seen. New wisdom can be heard. Tonight, as you breathe quietly in the dark, feel for the places inside you that are still rushing. The old urgency that clutches at your chest. The old habit that shouts in your ear. Feel them without judgment. Thank them for trying to keep you safe. And then, gently, let them soften. Let them slow. You have nothing to prove tonight. You have nowhere to rush to. You have permission to move at the speed of your own soul, to breathe fully, to live deeply, to walk slowly through the garden of your life, noticing the flowers you would otherwise miss, hearing the birds you would otherwise drown out, feeling the warmth of the sun you would otherwise run past. The world will continue spinning. Deadlines will continue appearing. Challenges will continue rising. But you do not have to meet them with panic. You can meet them with presence, with steadiness, with the deep, quiet power that only grows when you choose to move slowly enough to feel your own life happening. And maybe, just maybe, you will find that the things you feared losing by slowing down, the opportunities, the respect, the victories, were never as precious as the peace you gain by coming home to yourself. Tonight, and every night after, let slowness be your rebellion, your healing, your prayer. Let it teach you how to be fully here, fully alive, fully at peace. As you slow down, as you step off the frantic treadmill of urgency, you start seeing the outlines of something even deeper. You start noticing that underneath most panic, underneath most fear, underneath most of the restless craving for control, there is a fragile idea you have been carrying without even realizing it. The idea of yourself. The story of who you think you are. And tonight, you are going to begin the quiet, powerful work of loosening that story and discovering the freedom that waits beyond it. Most of your pain isn't about what's happening. It's about what you think it means about you. Letting go of that story could be the most freeing thing you ever do. Almost everything you fear, when you trace it all the way down to its roots, is not fear of pain, or fear of loss, or even fear of death. It is fear of what pain,
loss, or death will say about you. Fear that suffering will mean you are weak. Fear that failure will mean you are worthless. Fear that imperfection will mean you are unlovable. Fear that change will mean you are nothing at all. The mind builds an identity out of hopes, achievements, memories, beliefs. It builds an I the way a bird builds a nest, from scattered bits and pieces picked up along the way. And then it spends a lifetime trying to protect that nest at all costs. But what if the nest isn't you? What if the stories you tell yourself about who you are, smart, successful, broken, unworthy, important, invisible, are just that, stories, temporary constructions, inventions? What if who you are runs deeper, so deep that it has no label, no shape, no edges to defend? Buddhist wisdom points ruthlessly and lovingly to this truth. There is no fixed self, no solid, separate entity called me that must be protected at all costs. There is only a flow of experiences, sensations, thoughts, emotions, rising and passing like waves on a vast sea. The pain comes when you mistake the passing waves for the ocean itself. When you cling to an image of yourself and treat every challenge, every insult, every failure as a threat to that image. When you believe you are the body, every wrinkle becomes a crisis. When you believe you are your achievements, every setback becomes a humiliation. When you believe you are your relationships, every conflict becomes an existential threat. When you believe you are your thoughts, every dark idea becomes a personal failure. The deeper the attachment to the self-story, the more tightly fear coils around your heart. But when you start to loosen the grip on I, a new space opens. A space where you can experience pain without it becoming an attack on your worth. A space where you can meet failure without collapsing into shame. A space where you can see thoughts and emotions as visitors, not owners. A space where you can live more lightly, love more freely, breathe more deeply. Letting go of the self doesn't mean becoming a blank slate. It doesn't mean denying your uniqueness or your preciousness. It means recognizing that your true nature is bigger than any story you could tell about yourself. It means understanding that you are not the labels stuck to you by society, family, history, or even your own mind. It means seeing that just as the river is not its waves, you are not your passing experiences. The practical impact of this is enormous. Every day, worries rise up like weeds. What if I fail? What if they think badly of me? What if I am not enough? But when you are not clinging to a fragile self-image, these worries lose their teeth. Failure becomes just a result, not a sentence. Criticism becomes just sound, not a dagger to the heart. Change becomes just movement, not an erasure of your existence. You still care, you still feel, but you care from a deeper place, not from the brittle defenses of ego. You feel with the tenderness of someone who knows that nothing is truly owned, nothing truly defines you, nothing can truly diminish your deepest being. The ego is always trying to build a fortress. It stacks up achievements like bricks. It hoards praise like treasure. It defends against every slight like a wounded animal. But the fortress never brings peace. It only breeds more fear. Fear of losing what was built. Fear of not measuring up. Fear of being seen without the armor. Dropping the ego is like stepping out of a heavy suit of armor after carrying it for decades. At first, it feels vulnerable, naked, strange. But soon you notice the freedom. You notice you can move more easily, breathe more deeply, connect more honestly. You notice that life flows more smoothly when you are not constantly trying to manage your image, prove your worth, defend your story. This doesn't mean you lose your personality or stop striving for growth. It means you stop confusing surface identity with true value. It means you grow not because you need to fix a broken self, but because growth itself is joyful, natural, alive. In small ways, every day you can practice loosening the self. Notice when you feel defensive. Instead of automatically fighting back, pause, ask, what am I trying to protect? What part of my story feels threatened? Notice when you feel superior or inferior. Pause, ask, what comparison am I believing in? What illusion of separation am I clinging to? Notice when you are desperate for approval, terrified of failure, obsessed with achievement. Pause. Ask, what do I think it would say about me if this goes wrong? Each pause is a crack in the armor. Each moment of awareness is a step toward freedom. You don't have to destroy the ego. You don't have to declare war on it. You only have to stop feeding it with blind belief. Stop believing every thought that says you must be this or that to be enough. Stop believing every fear that says your worth can be measured by success or failure, by love or rejection. Underneath the constructed self, there is something unshakable, something that doesn't rise and fall with fortune, something that doesn't shrink in the face of loss, something that doesn't need to be defended because it was never under threat. Buddhism sometimes calls this your Buddha nature. Others call it pure awareness, true being, original mind. Words don't matter. The experience does. And the experience is this: peace without conditions, freedom without defenses, joy without achievement, love without possession. Tonight, as you lie in the quiet, notice the small ways the mind tries to reassert its story. Notice the subtle fear that you must hold yourself together, maintain your identity, defend your worth. And then, softly, let it go. You are already whole. You are already free. You do not have to keep protecting an image that was never real. You do not have to keep fighting to maintain a story that was never your deepest truth. You can let the waves rise and fall without mistaking them for the ocean. You can trust the deeper current of your being, the one that has carried you this far, the one that asks for nothing but your willingness to rest in it. The mind may resist. The mind may panic. The mind may whisper that without the story of I, there will be nothing left. But look carefully, feel deeply, and you will see. When the fragile self vanishes, what remains is not nothing. It is everything. It is life itself, vast, boundless, awake. And it was never separate from you, not for one single breath. Once you begin loosening your grip on the story of who you think you are, life becomes lighter. There is less to protect, less to prove, less to fear. But in that space where ego begins to dissolve, another quiet discomfort sometimes rises. A subtle impatience, a hidden restlessness. The question that hums beneath everything: if I'm not chasing success, if I'm not shaping a perfect identity, how do I know I'm moving forward? How do I know what I'm doing matters? And that's where this next truth begins to bloom. A truth that can silence that restlessness and return your heart to steady ground. So much suffering comes from not seeing results fast enough. But real transformation was never meant to be instant. It grows in silence, deep underground, before it ever breaks the surface. One of the most painful experiences in modern life is feeling like you're doing everything right and seeing nothing happen. You try to be kinder, but people still misunderstand you. You work on healing, but old habits still return. You put in effort, but the world remains silent. It's in those moments that doubt creeps in, sharp and convincing. The mind starts whispering that maybe nothing matters, maybe nothing works, maybe you should stop trying altogether. And yet, what if the problem isn't that nothing is working? What if the problem is that you've been trained to expect immediate results from processes that are meant to take time? Buddhist wisdom teaches something radically different from modern instant gratification. It teaches that every action plants a seed, and every seed grows according to its nature and timing. Not your timing, not your schedule, the seed's timing. Life doesn't respond to effort like a vending machine. You don't insert kindness and instantly receive praise. You don't meditate for a week and wake up permanently at peace. The law of karma doesn't promise instant gratification. It promises inevitable results shaped by countless conditions. Some you can see, and many you cannot. This truth can feel both humbling and comforting. Humbling because it shows you how little control you actually have over when and how things bloom. Comforting because it assures you that your efforts are never wasted. Not a single drop of sincere effort is ever lost. Not one moment of integrity, not one breath of compassion, not one quiet choice to do the right thing instead of the easy thing goes unseen by the deeper currents of existence. Every good action is a seed, and seeds know how to wait. If you don't understand this, restlessness will run your life. You will jump from one thing to another, always hoping for faster results. You'll give up just before the roots start growing. You'll abandon relationships because healing didn't happen quickly. You'll throw away your practice because peace didn't arrive fast enough. But if you learn to trust the invisible work, the work that happens underground, in silence, in slowness, you begin to walk a different path, a steadier path, a path with less panic and more patience. There's a reason farmers don't dig up their seeds every day to check if they're growing. Doing so would only disturb the process. They water, they wait, they trust the soil, they understand that growth is quiet, that roots must come before leaves, that darkness is not the opposite of life, it is part of life. And this is the same invitation you are given: to trust what you cannot yet see, to believe that what feels invisible today will become visible in its own season, to stop measuring your progress only by external signs and start honoring the quiet inner changes that can't be photographed or praised. This is not blind faith. It's deep understanding. It's knowing that just because something is not seen doesn't mean it isn't real. The tree is in the seed even when there are no leaves. The flower is in the bud even before it opens. The peace is in the practice even when your thoughts feel noisy. When you act with mindfulness, when you choose kindness over cruelty, patience over anger, presence over distraction, you are shaping your future even if you don't feel it in the moment.
Sometimes growth looks like stillness. Sometimes progress looks like struggle. Sometimes you are transforming without knowing it. Sometimes the discomfort you feel is not proof that you're failing. It's proof that something inside you is shedding its old skin, making space for a more honest, grounded version of yourself to come through. But if you demand to see proof too soon, if you insist that every step must show results, you cut off the very process that is trying to help you. Trusting in seeds means understanding that your job is not to force outcomes, but to tend to causes. Water the soil. Show up with sincerity. Speak with kindness. Sit in silence. Let go of outcomes. The results are not your responsibility. They never were. Your responsibility is effort without clinging, action without anxiety, commitment without demand. This is why restlessness begins to disappear when you deeply trust this process. Because you no longer need to keep asking, is it working? You no longer live on a tightrope between success and failure. You live in a steady rhythm of planting, nurturing, allowing. You become less obsessed with what shows and more interested in what's true. You stop performing your goodness and start embodying it. You stop rushing transformation and start trusting its pace. And the irony is, the less you obsess over results, the more powerful your actions become. Because they are no longer tied to ego. You are no longer doing good to look good. You are no longer growing to prove something. You are simply living in alignment with truth, and that alignment itself becomes its own reward. You begin to find peace not in arrival, but in consistency, not in applause, but in integrity. There will still be moments of doubt. The mind will still ask, why haven't things changed yet? Why is it taking so long? Why is no one noticing my effort? In those moments, return to the earth. Return to the image of the seed underground. Feel the weight of patience inside your chest. Remind yourself that unseen is not the same as unimportant. Invisible is not the same as ineffective. Your healing may be growing roots before it grows leaves. Your compassion may be softening walls you can't see yet. Your practice may be calming storms that haven't even started yet. Every kind word, every gentle breath, every wise choice is preparing something in your life that will unfold in its own time, in its own way. You don't have to believe in instant miracles to believe in quiet transformation. You only have to remember that even the tallest trees begin as things no one noticed, that even the clearest lakes begin as single drops, that even the strongest wisdom begins as one choice not to give up. Tonight, let that truth sink into your bones. Let it slow your heartbeat. Let it soften the part of you that's still measuring, still calculating, still demanding proof that you are okay. You are more than okay. You are walking a path that no one can see for you, and that alone is enough. You are planting seeds in a garden that blooms silently, and that alone is sacred. Trust it. Trust the soil. Trust the silence. Trust the time it takes. And most of all, trust that nothing good is ever wasted. Not in this life, not in any life. Let restlessness fade into devotion. Let anxiety dissolve into faith. Let today's small efforts carry the weight of tomorrow's peace. Your only job now is to keep walking, softly, patiently, honestly. That is enough. As you learn to trust the seeds you plant, even when no one else sees them grow, your restlessness fades. You no longer need to demand that life bend to your timeline because something more profound has awakened: patience. But with patience comes another doorway, one few are taught to walk through. It's quieter than confidence and deeper than calm. It's what happens when the ego no longer needs to grip, when the heart stops resisting, and when the mind is no longer at war with what is. That doorway is reverence, and walking through it can transform your entire relationship with life. Reverence isn't weakness. It's what happens when you stop trying to control life and start honoring it. And in that simple shift, something begins to soften that anxiety could never touch. There is a kind of peace that doesn't come from solving problems, but from bowing to what you can't solve. Not in defeat, not in hopelessness, but in quiet respect. Reverence is one of the most powerful medicines the human heart can take in, and yet it's one of the rarest things practiced in the modern world. Most people are trained to analyze life, fight with it, argue about it, demand that it be different. But no one teaches what it means to kneel before it, not as a servant, but as someone finally humble enough to recognize that they are standing inside something far greater than their plans. When reverence enters the mind, everything begins to shift. You stop standing above life, judging it. You stop standing outside of it, controlling it. You step into a different posture, not physical, though it can be, but spiritual, emotional, psychological. A posture of bowing, of softening, of knowing that you don't have to have all the answers to belong here, that you don't need to win every battle to find peace, that life doesn't owe you anything, and yet you still get to wake up every day in the middle of this great unfolding. Reverence begins where arrogance ends. Arrogance says, "I know better." Reverence says, "I will listen." Arrogance tightens. Reverence opens. Arrogance resists. Reverence receives. It is not a giving up, but a giving in, to presence, to wisdom, to the pulse of life itself. It is what happens when you look at a tree and stop seeing it as scenery and start feeling it as sacred. When you eat a meal and stop treating it like fuel and start recognizing it as a miracle. When you take a breath and stop ignoring it and start realizing that it too is a gift. One of the greatest sources of human suffering is the belief that life is something to conquer, that every moment must be judged, compared, improved, that every challenge is an enemy, that every imperfection is a flaw. Reverence breaks that pattern. It doesn't fix everything, but it melts the need to fix. It reminds you that not everything broken needs to be repaired. Some things need to be witnessed. Some things need to be blessed. Some things need to be lived. In Buddhist practice, there is a deep tradition of bowing, not just physically, but inwardly. Bowing to teachers, bowing to the Dharma, bowing to the suffering you carry, bowing to the parts of yourself you once rejected, not as an act of worship, but as a practice of humility, of returning to the truth that you are not in control of this world and you were never meant to be, that you are not the source of everything, and that's okay. That surrender, in the deepest sense, is not defeat. It is participation. It is saying yes to life exactly as it is, with an open heart instead of a clenched fist. This kind of bowing doesn't make you small. It makes you real. It strips away the performance.
It quiets the inner rebellion that constantly says, "This shouldn't be happening." Reverence lets you breathe even when you don't understand what's unfolding. It lets you trust even when pain shows up uninvited. It lets you feel safe, not because life is predictable, but because your heart no longer needs to fight every unpredictable thing it meets. Anxiety thrives in the absence of reverence. When you see life as random, hostile, mechanical, when you see it as something to be controlled or outsmarted, your nervous system stays on high alert. But when you begin to see life as something to bow to, something to touch lightly, something to honor, your nervous system starts to feel supported by something much older than fear. Something that doesn't need you to know everything, be everything, do everything. Something that just wants you to be present and to meet the moment with respect. That respect can take many forms. It can be the way you place your phone down when someone is speaking to you. It can be the way you stop and watch the wind move through trees instead of rushing to the next thing. It can be the way you hold your own pain like something sacred instead of something shameful. It can be the way you speak softer when your inner critic grows louder, not because you are weak, but because reverence has made you wiser. Reverence turns ordinary moments into sacred ground. It turns discomfort into a doorway. It turns uncertainty into a teacher. The moment you bow, not to a person, but to the truth that you do not know everything, you begin to taste a freedom that control could never give you. You stop needing life to go your way. You start letting it lead you, not blindly, not passively, but with an openness that can hold mystery without collapsing. This doesn't mean you never say no. Reverence isn't obedience. It's not giving up your voice. It's not tolerating harm or injustice. Reverence includes fierce clarity. It can say no with firm love. It can set boundaries with grace. It's not about being silent. It's about being honest without arrogance. It's about saying, "I speak not because I want power, but because I want truth." And it begins with how you treat your own life, how you wake up in the morning, how you greet your reflection in the mirror, how you sit down to eat, how you breathe before answering a question, how you meet your aging face or your aching heart with kindness instead of scorn. Reverence doesn't ask for dramatic rituals. It asks for presence. It asks you to look again, and this time to see not with judgment, but with wonder. If you've been struggling with anxiety, if your heart feels tired from all the trying and fixing and striving, consider this. Maybe what you need is not more strategy, but more bowing, more space between your thoughts, more sacred pauses, more willingness to let life be as it is. Maybe you don't need to understand everything. Maybe you just need to kneel inside the mystery and let your breathing do the prayer. Tonight, let yourself rest in that kind of humility. Not the kind that shrinks you, but the kind that holds you gently. Let yourself bow, not as a gesture of giving up, but as a gesture of returning to what is real. Let yourself say, "I do not have all the answers, and I don't need to. I am part of this life, not above it. And I will meet it with respect, not resistance." The rebellion in your mind that says, "This isn't fair, this isn't right, this should be different," is not your enemy. It's the part of you that is still scared to trust life's timing, to trust life's intelligence, to trust that even the chaos has meaning, even the difficulty has direction. Reverence is how you soothe that rebellion, not by silencing it, but by embracing it, by holding it like a child who doesn't yet know they're safe. And the more you live like this, the more your entire being begins to shift. You stop needing certainty. You stop needing to be right. You stop needing everything to make sense immediately. You find strength in softness, courage in surrender, peace in presence. You walk slower, speak gentler, listen deeper. You become someone who no longer fights with life, but walks with it. And in that walking, something rare happens. You begin to feel carried. The more you learn to meet life with reverence instead of resistance, the more you stop demanding answers and start listening to silence. And in that silence, another layer of the self begins to dissolve. Not just the habit of fighting what is, but the constant obsession with where you're going next. The next goal, the next breakthrough, the next moment that finally makes it all feel worth it. But what if that destination you've been chasing your whole life was never meant to be reached? The peace you keep waiting for after you arrive? It was always available the moment you stopped running. Almost every form of human stress has a single root: chronic dissatisfaction. The inner sense that now is not enough. That this moment is only a stepping stone to something better. That peace, happiness, rest, and worthiness live somewhere in the future, just a little further down the road. This is destination addiction. The belief that salvation is always one accomplishment away, one change away, one healed wound away. But in chasing that mirage, something tragic happens. You miss your own life. You wake up, not to live, but to reach. You move through the hours as if they are obstacles between you and a better day. You climb ladders in your mind, trying to reach a place where you'll finally feel whole, finally feel safe, finally stop needing more. But that place keeps shifting. Every time you get close, the finish line moves. Because it was never real. It was a trick of the mind, a future fantasy that feeds off your absence from the present. The mind is brilliant at convincing you that peace lives later. After you fix this, after you get that, after they understand you, after life becomes stable. But life is never stable for long. There's always something that breaks, delays, disappoints. There's always a new problem waiting. And so the chase continues, endless, exhausting, hollow. You may change jobs, partners, homes, beliefs, but if the destination mindset stays, the same emptiness follows you everywhere you go. Buddhism points straight at this trap with a kind of fierce compassion. It says, there is no arrival. There is only this moment, this breath, this version of you, imperfect and whole at the same time. There is no point in the future where everything clicks into place forever. There is no version of yourself that will never struggle again. The idea of arrival is just a more polite form of suffering, a socially acceptable way to say, I can't be happy yet. But when you truly let go of the need to arrive, something extraordinary happens. The weight falls off your shoulders, the anxiety slows its grip, the breath becomes fuller, the heart opens wider, because you're no longer trying to use this moment to buy your way into a better one. You're no longer treating your life as a transaction. You're finally living it. This doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you grow from a place of presence, not from pressure. You can still have goals. You can still move toward change. But the journey stops being a frantic race and starts becoming an unfolding. You no longer say, "I'll love myself when." You say, "I choose to be with myself now, even while I grow." You no longer say, "I'll rest after this is done." You say, "I can rest even in the middle of this." You no longer say, "I need to prove something." You say, "Nothing is missing." There's a deep peace that comes from realizing you don't have to earn arrival, because you never left home to begin with. The seeking was the distraction. The striving was the illusion. And this doesn't make your dreams meaningless. It makes them more beautiful, because now they are not burdens. They are invitations. Invitations to experience, to express, to evolve, not to escape. Living without destination addiction means you stop asking, "How close am I to being finished?" and start asking, "How fully am I living now?" You stop rushing to the top of every mountain and start noticing the sky while you climb. You stop waiting for others to validate your journey and start walking it with your own steady heart. There is so much energy wasted in pretending you're not already enough. So much pressure to become something more than this moment allows. But peace does not live in pressure. It lives in presence. In the quiet, knowing that life is not asking you to arrive, it's asking you to participate. Every spiritual tradition has spoken this in different ways, that heaven is not later, it is here, that nirvana is not somewhere else, it is right now, beneath the clinging. That enlightenment is not found after years of perfection, it is revealed the moment you stop running from yourself. This path is not about lowering standards, it's about removing the poison hidden inside them. The poison that says, "If I don't achieve this, I am less." The poison that says, "If I don't get there soon, I'm behind." That mindset robs you of your birthright, your right to feel joy in the middle of chaos, your right to feel worthy without a trophy, your right to breathe without checking off a box. When you drop the destination, you pick up your life, the real one, the one that's been waiting patiently behind the future fantasies, the one that tastes different, looks different, feels different, because it is actually here. You stop fast-forwarding, you stop editing, you stop performing for a crowd that doesn't even exist. You start hearing birds again, you start crying for no reason, you start laughing without needing a joke. You start remembering what being alive actually feels like. The fear will still come. It will ask, "But what if I fall behind? What if I never make it? What if letting go means I get left out?" That fear is not your enemy. It's the last echo of the lie. The lie that said your worth depended on becoming someone else. The truth is quieter, but it waits. It waits for you to pause long enough to hear it whisper, "You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not unfinished. You are already home. You can still move forward. You can still have visions and dreams. But now you move with presence, not panic. With joy, not with shame. With grace, not with guilt. You can run when it feels light. You can rest when it feels true. You can let your life bloom at its own pace, no longer as a chase, but as a ceremony. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, notice if some part of you is still chasing, still checking progress, still waiting to be done. You don't have to fight that part, just hold it, breathe with it. Remind it gently, we're not trying to arrive anymore. We're here. This breath is the destination. This silence is the reward. This stillness is enough. And the more you practice this, the more you realize you were never meant to carry the burden of becoming someone else. You were meant to become fully yourself, not later, but now, not perfectly, but presently. And that presence is the peace you were searching for all along. When you finally stop chasing the illusion of arriving, you begin to breathe in a way you haven't breathed in years. There's a quietness underneath everything, like still water beneath a fast-moving stream. But as that peace opens, something else becomes clearer too. Your emotions still rise like waves, sometimes crashing. They don't disappear just because you've stopped running. That's when another layer of wisdom becomes essential, not controlling how you feel, but learning how to hold it all with a steady presence. Tonight, you'll learn how to do that without drowning. You were never meant to be ruled by the storm inside you. It only ever asked you to witness it, not become it. There is a deep kind of suffering that comes not from what we feel, but from the war we wage against those feelings. A storm rises in the mind, a sadness, a fear, a wave of irritation, and instantly we react. We try to fix it, analyze it, suppress it, or numb it. We brace ourselves, resist, fight. But the more we fight, the stronger the storm seems to get. The more we try to make it stop, the more it consumes us. We forget that emotions are not permanent structures. They are not solid walls. They are weather, and weather always changes. This is one of the most liberating insights in Buddhist practice. Emotions are not who you are. They are passing events, temporary states, clouds in the sky, waves on the sea. They come, they go. None of them are permanent, and none of them define you. You can feel rage without being a raging person. You can experience grief without becoming broken. You can sit with anxiety without being destroyed by it. But to do that, you must stop clinging to what feels good and stop fearing what feels heavy. You must stop identifying with what is passing and start anchoring into what remains. What remains is the awareness behind the weather, the stillness behind the storm. It doesn't need to fix or fight or force anything. It just sees. It just allows. This kind of seeing is not passive. It is powerful, because it interrupts the cycle of reactivity. It creates space between the rise of emotion and the reflex to act from it. That space is everything. It's where peace lives. You don't need to change your emotions. You only need to see them clearly, to feel them without attaching to them, to let them move through you like wind through trees. The tree does not resist the wind. It bends, it stays rooted, and when the wind passes, the tree is still there. You too can learn to stay rooted, even in the hardest feelings. It starts with naming what's here, not in judgment, but in recognition. Not, I am angry, but anger is here. Not, I am anxious, but anxiety is passing through. This subtle shift changes everything. It reminds you that emotions are visitors, not residents, that they do not own you, that you are the space in which they appear, not the emotion itself. When sadness comes, instead of drowning in it or running from it, sit beside it. Listen to it. Ask what it needs. Hold it like you would hold a frightened child. Not to make it disappear, but to let it know it's not alone. When fear rises, Instead of armoring up, soften. Breathe slower. Watch the sensations it brings. Notice how your body reacts. Observe without story. Watch it shift. When joy comes, instead of gripping it out of fear, it will leave. Let it flow naturally. Appreciate it without needing it to stay. When it goes, bow to it. Gratitude without possession. The storms of emotion only become suffering when we try to make them stay or force them to go. When we chase pleasure or panic at pain. But if you stand still in the center of your awareness and let them pass, they will. No emotion lasts forever. Not even the worst ones. Not even the most beautiful ones. Trying to freeze a feeling is like trying to hold sunlight in your hands. It was never meant to be kept. It was meant to be experienced and released. The practice is simple, but not easy. It requires that you stay awake in moments where you'd rather check out. That you breathe slowly when the instinct is to tense. That you offer kindness to the emotions you were taught to shame. That you don't rush your healing, don't silence your grief, don't pretend to be okay just to make others comfortable. Some days the sky will be clear, some days the clouds will roll in fast, but the sky never argues. It doesn't need to. It knows the storm is just a guest. Your awareness is like that sky. You can learn to watch your thoughts and feelings without identifying with them. You can feel them rise, peak, and dissolve. Even the strongest emotions have a natural lifespan. If you don't feed them with more thought, if you don't loop them into a drama, they soften, they pass, they leave behind clarity, they leave behind a kind of quiet resilience. There will be moments where the emotion feels too big, where presence feels impossible. That's okay. Even awareness comes in waves. The practice is not perfection, it's return. Return to the breath. Return to the body. Return to the simple truth. This feeling will pass. This moment will pass. And I do not have to turn it into a story about who I am. You are not your sadness. You are not your fear. You are not your frustration. You are not your loneliness. You are the space that holds all these things. You are the witness, not the weather. And over time, this truth becomes your anchor. You stop fearing your feelings. You stop needing to control every inner shift. You stop panicking when discomfort arises, because you know, deep in your bones, that nothing stays. Everything is always moving. The stillness you seek is not the absence of feeling. It is the ability to feel without clinging, to let life move through you without making it mean something about your worth. Some emotions return often. They knock on your door like old visitors. Instead of rejecting them or welcoming them blindly, just greet them with awareness. Learn from them. Let them speak. Then let them go. Not every emotion is a message. Not every sensation needs an explanation. Some just need space. Some just need time. Tonight, as you lie in the dark, pay attention to the emotions still moving through you. Don't label them as wrong or weak. Don't try to solve them. Just notice. Let them be what they are. Let them move as they must. Let them pass. They always do. The more you practice this, the stronger you become, not hard and unbreakable, but soft and unshakable. Not immune to storms, but skilled at sailing through them. This is the freedom that comes from weathering the mind. Not mastering every emotion, but learning to stop fearing them. Not making yourself perfect, but allowing yourself to feel without losing yourself. Peace does not mean silence. It means spaciousness. The inner room where all emotions can come and go without you needing to lock the door. You are not the storm, you are the sky, and the sky is always free. Once you understand that your emotions are just weather passing through, not the definition of who you are, a gentler way of living begins to reveal itself. You no longer need to resist every wave or fear every cloud. But something even softer waits on the other side of that awareness. Not control, not mastery, just appreciation. A quiet, grounded thankfulness that rises not from perfect conditions, but from simply noticing what was always there. The doorway to peace opens wider when you stop waiting for something extraordinary and start seeing the ordinary as extraordinary. That's where we go next. You don't need more to feel whole. You just need to see more clearly what you already have. There is a kind of blindness that doesn't come from the eyes, but from the mind. A blindness that walks past 1,000 quiet miracles every day without seeing a single one. It's the blindness of forgetting to notice the warmth of sunlight through the window, forgetting to notice the sound of someone's laughter echoing down the hall, forgetting to notice the feeling of your own breath rising and falling faithfully again and again. This forgetting doesn't happen because we're ungrateful. It happens because we've been taught to look for joy in loud places, in achievement, in arrival, in the spectacular. And while we're waiting for something big enough to impress us, we miss the tiny, generous details that are already carrying us through. Gratitude, especially in the Buddhist sense, is not a performance. It's not a list you write to check off good behavior. It's not a mood you force when everything feels wrong. It's a way of seeing, a shift from scanning for problems to noticing blessings, a turning of attention, not to escape pain, but to recognize wholeness within imperfection. Gratitude does not say everything is perfect. It says not everything has to be perfect to be good, and this shift alone can begin to dissolve the background hum of anxiety that so many people carry without realizing. Worry thrives in the mind that always sees what's missing. That mind is trained to find fault, to fix, to expect. It scans the day looking for what didn't happen, what could go wrong, what isn't working. But the moment you train that same mind to look differently, to look for what's present instead of what's absent, to look for what's working instead of what's broken, to look for what's beautiful instead of what's urgent, something quiet begins to unfold. It doesn't erase your fears, it makes them less loud, because now they are not the only voice in the room. This shift can begin with the smallest things: a warm cup of water, the feeling of your feet against the floor, the fact that you are able to take a deep breath without pain, the light filtering in through the corner of the window, the softness of a pillow that holds your head. None of these are dramatic, but each of them is a small doorway out of worry, a thread that leads back to the present. A reminder that even while not everything is okay, some things still are. Anxious minds are constantly preparing for a future that may never come. Gratitude interrupts this momentum. It says, "Stop, look, this is happening now. You are alive now. You are breathing now. You are held now. Even if you don't have answers, even if you don't know what tomorrow brings, there is something here that is still offering itself. The more you notice it, the more it grows. Not because the world changes, but because your way of meeting the world does. Buddhist teachers often talk about the power of contentment. But contentment is not about settling. It's about seeing clearly. When you stop expecting happiness to arrive in perfect conditions, you realize that peace is made of very ordinary moments. You begin to taste life again, not the dramatic highs, but the subtle sweetness that was always present underneath the noise. You start to feel like maybe you don't need to escape this moment. Maybe this moment is enough. This kind of gratitude becomes a practice, not a mood. Some days you will feel heavy. You will not feel thankful. Your mind will be noisy, your body tired, your patience thin. Gratitude still lives here, not as a requirement, but as a possibility. You do not need to force a smile or deny your pain. You only need to ask, is there anything I can still appreciate, even now? And if the answer is yes, even in the smallest way, then you have already stepped into a quieter, more grounded life. There are times when pain is so loud that even the ordinary feels far away. Times when grief blinds you to anything except loss. In those moments, gratitude is not about listing what's good. It's about not abandoning what's true. It's about letting a single kind gesture, a single soft breeze, a single beam of sunlight be enough to remind you that the world is not only made of sorrow. It's about finding something, anything, to bow to, even in the middle of heartbreak. Gratitude becomes a lifeline, not to positivity, but to perspective. And this changes everything. Because the anxious mind loves to exaggerate. It says, nothing is working, everything is falling apart. I am not okay. But gratitude counters that voice. It doesn't argue. It just speaks quietly. Something is still working. Everything has not fallen apart. You are still here. That voice doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be consistent. Over time, it becomes the anchor that keeps you from drifting too far away. The practice of gratitude doesn't require any special setting. It doesn't require more time or energy. It only requires attention. It requires that you pause in the middle of your life and ask, what have I been ignoring? What beauty have I walked past without seeing? What peace have I postponed because I was waiting for something bigger? When you ask that sincerely, life starts to answer, not with fireworks, but with details. And those details start to build a foundation you can stand on, even when the rest of the world feels shaky. Gratitude also softens the hard edges of comparison. When you are thankful for what is here, you stop needing what others have to prove your worth. You stop measuring your life against someone else's highlights. You stop chasing images and start embracing presence. And this doesn't mean you give up ambition or goals. It means you're no longer afraid to be where you are. You're no longer ashamed of your journey. You're no longer blind to the good that exists, even in struggle. Every time you choose to be thankful, not for something big, but for something real, you are building a mind that resists despair. You are creating inner pathways that do not collapse when things don't go as planned. You are training your heart to stay open, even in uncertainty. And this is not spiritual fluff. This is survival. This is strength. This is how people endure the hardest winters, not by pretending to be okay, but by seeing enough light to keep going. Tonight, let this be your practice, not to fix anything, not to chase anything, but to notice, to notice what your mind has overlooked in its endless search for more, to notice what your heart still carries, even after everything, to notice the ground beneath you, the breath within you, the life moving through you, quietly, without demand. You don't need a reason to be grateful. You just need a willingness to see. And once you begin to see, you start to realize peace was never far away. It was always sitting beside you, quietly waiting for your attention. As your eyes begin to see more clearly, as gratitude pulls your awareness back to the quiet richness of the present moment, something else gently comes into view. The part of you that still believes things should be happening faster. Even when you start to notice beauty, even when your heart opens to small joys, there remains this quiet tension under the surface, the need for life to unfold on your schedule. The inner clock that never stops ticking, the pressure that says it's all taking too long. But peace doesn't grow in pressure. It grows in patience. And now, that's what you'll begin to understand. If it hasn't happened yet, maybe it's not because something's wrong. Maybe it's because something is still growing underground. There's a kind of suffering that doesn't come from what life gives you. It comes from how quickly you think it should have given it. You can be walking through something deeply meaningful, but if your mind says it's taking too long, suddenly it feels like failure. If your healing isn't fast enough, if your plans don't come together on time, if your progress doesn't show when you expect it to, pressure builds. And that pressure can crush everything that once felt sacred. The journey becomes a burden. The effort becomes shame. The present moment becomes unbearable, not because it's truly bad, but because it hasn't become what your mind promised it would be. The human mind has always struggled with timing. It believes in linear growth. It believes in fixed deadlines. It wants guarantees. It wants outcomes to follow effort on a predictable timeline. But real life doesn't work like that. Nature doesn't bloom faster just because you ask it to. The tree doesn't grow taller just because you water it harder. The healing doesn't complete itself just because you're tired of hurting. The relationship doesn't evolve faster just because you've done your inner work. Life is not a machine, it's a mystery. And mystery unfolds in its own rhythm. This is why letting go of your timeline is not giving up. It's growing up. It's understanding that the deepest things cannot be rushed, that the most lasting changes don't happen on command, that the real work is often invisible for a long time. Seeds do their most important work in darkness. Roots develop strength before anything rises above the surface. And the same is true for you. There are changes unfolding in you right now that you cannot measure. Wisdom building in you that has no date stamp. Strength forming in silence. But if you're too attached to seeing results, you might miss it. You might quit too early. You might throw away something beautiful just because it didn't grow fast enough. You might rush into things that aren't ready or abandon things that were about to bloom. So much anxiety comes not from the actual moment you're in, but from comparing it to the moment you thought you should be in by now. And this is why the courage to let things unfold is not weakness. It's a deep spiritual strength. It takes patience to hold uncertainty without demanding closure. It takes trust to sit in the middle of becoming. It takes wisdom to know that you are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing your life. You are simply inside a process that is deeper than your schedule. Letting go of timelines means releasing the fantasy that you will feel safe only when things happen in a certain order. It means opening your heart to the idea that maybe what's happening now is not a delay, but a preparation. Not a punishment, but a pruning. Not a failure, but a foundation. The story is still unfolding. The middle is not the end. You just haven't seen the whole picture yet. This kind of letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clenching. It means you show up with presence, without choking every moment with expectation. It means you allow life to surprise you, to teach you, to move in ways your mind never planned for. It means you begin to understand that the things worth having often arrive quietly, slowly, differently than you thought they would. You start to see that control is not safety, it's stress. That pressure is not productivity, it's poison. That your inner peace does not have to wait for a certain outcome. It can begin the moment you stop demanding that this moment become something else. When you live this way, you start breathing again. You stop rushing every conversation. You stop measuring your progress by other people's timelines. You stop scanning every day for proof that you're getting closer to something. You just live, fully, kindly, honestly. You let each experience be what it is, instead of what you wanted it to be. And that shift is where freedom begins. You no longer waste your energy trying to make the wind blow faster. You turn your attention to how you're standing in it. You stop trying to speed up the waves and start learning how to move with them. You stop blaming life for not unfolding on your terms and start participating in the unfolding that's actually here. And this doesn't mean passivity. It means alignment. It means working with life, not against it. It means honoring your effort, but also honoring the seasons. It means trusting your direction, but also surrendering the pace. The same rain that feeds the roots takes time to reach the fruit. If you try to harvest too early, you miss the fullness. If you wait with presence, what grows will be worth the wait. This is not just about goals or success, it's about everything. Healing takes time. Relationships evolve slowly. Forgiveness unfolds in layers. Self-trust deepens with practice. Confidence grows quietly beneath many small steps. Nothing lasting is built in one day, but the moment you stop rushing the journey itself becomes a gift. You are no longer waiting to arrive, you are living every step. And the surprising part is, once you let go of needing things to happen quickly, they often unfold more smoothly. Not because life gives in to your demands, but because you are no longer resisting it. You are no longer tightening around the process. You are flowing with it. And flow, not force, is the true secret to progress. There will be days when doubt returns, when you feel like nothing is changing, when you compare yourself again, when old pressure knocks on the door. That's when the practice becomes real. That's when you remember. The pressure is not coming from life. It's coming from the story in your head. And you can breathe instead of believe. You can soften instead of speed up. You can trust instead of tighten. Tonight, let that be your prayer. Not to get there faster, but to stop running away from where you are. Not to skip ahead, but to be right here with honesty and presence. Let this moment be enough to rest in. Let this season of your life be worthy of your full attention, even if it doesn't look like what you thought it would. Let go of the timer in your mind. Let go of the voice that says it's all taking too long. Let go of the lie that says your worth is waiting for you in the future. You are not late. You are not lost. You are exactly where the next lesson is waiting. As you begin to let go of the rigid timelines that created so much pressure, something unexpected begins to loosen in you. You start to make more room for life to unfold, more room for uncertainty, and eventually, more room for others. But there's still one more place where tension hides, not in how you treat yourself, but in how much you try to manage everyone else. Even if your hands have released control over your own outcomes, your mind may still be gripping tightly to the choices, actions, and emotions of others. And tonight, we begin the work of releasing that too. Not everything that's painful is yours to fix. Some peace comes not from doing more, but from finally stepping back. There's a hidden kind of suffering that grows quietly in the background of relationships. It doesn't scream. It doesn't always even feel like pain. It feels like concern, like responsibility, like care. But underneath that concern, there is a trap, a subtle belief that other people need to change in order for you to feel okay, that they should act differently, speak differently, decide differently, heal faster, communicate better, choose what's right, apologize, grow, understand, do the thing you keep wishing they would do, and when they don't, you suffer. You suffer because deep down you are still living with a kind of interference that wears the mask of love. You are stepping into other people's lives with your expectations, your frustrations, your urgency. You are carrying pain that doesn't belong to you and calling it compassion. You are trying to shape someone else's path, thinking it will lead both of you to peace, but it never does, because peace doesn't live in control, it lives in trust. The truth is, the more you try to manage others, the more entangled you become in cycles of anxiety and disappointment. You check their mood to decide your own. You wait for their validation to feel secure. You replay their words, analyze their choices, question their motives. You try to predict their next step, hoping it will line up with your hope. But this effort doesn't bring closeness. It brings tension. It doesn't create connection. It creates resentment. It doesn't set anyone free. It traps both of you in roles that neither of you truly want. Non-interference is not cold. It's not passive. It's not detachment in the empty sense. It's love without clinging. It's care without control. It's the quiet strength of trusting that everyone has their own karma to walk, their own timing to honor, their own unfolding to live through. You don't need to control the people you love in order to love them well. In fact, trying to control them is the one thing that blocks the love from flowing freely. You can still set boundaries. You can still speak truth. You can still say no when something crosses your values. But you no longer try to micromanage the emotions and evolution of another person. You don't carry their responsibility like it's your job. You don't carry their pain like it's your punishment. You let them be where they are without demanding that they arrive somewhere else to make you feel safe. This shift begins in the mind, not in the behavior. It starts with softening the stories that say things like, "They shouldn't be like this," or "If they really cared, they'd do this differently." Those thoughts seem reasonable, but they're weapons in disguise. They keep you tangled in judgment. They place your peace in someone else's hands, and they will always, eventually, leave you feeling powerless. Non-interference doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop controlling. It means you give others the dignity of their own path. It means you start listening more and pushing less. It means you stop walking around with an emotional checklist, measuring other people's love by how well they meet your preferences. You start to see them more clearly, not as who you wish they were, but as who they actually are. And this clarity brings freedom, because now your happiness is no longer chained to their improvement. You can let others struggle without it destroying you. You can let others disagree without it meaning you are unloved. You can let others be inconsistent, imperfect, human, and you can still be whole. This doesn't mean you let people hurt you. It doesn't mean you stay where you're not respected. But it does mean you stop trying to fix what isn't yours. You stop wasting your energy on rearranging someone else's growth. You learn how to step back, not in anger, but in peace. You realize that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to allow space. Space for others to learn their own lessons. Space for you to stop performing emotional labor for everyone around you. Space for truth to rise naturally instead of being forced. One of the greatest causes of burnout is emotional overfunctioning, doing the work that someone else is supposed to do, trying to be responsible for how they feel, how they act, how they respond. But when you live like this, you are not being compassionate. You are being consumed. You are not being helpful. You are being drained. And the resentment that grows in this space slowly poisons both you and the relationship. Letting go is not an act of rejection. It is an act of respect. Respect for your own energy. Respect for their path. Respect for the mystery of growth, which unfolds in ways you cannot plan or predict. When you stop interfering, you begin to feel a kind of inner space you forgot existed. The space to breathe, to rest, to love without effort, to be near people without managing them, to witness pain without becoming responsible for its resolution. You begin to understand that everyone is walking through their own causes and conditions. Just as you needed time to see what you couldn't see before, so do they. Just as you resisted the truth until you were ready to face it, so will they. You stop trying to rush their transformation. You stop trying to become their savior. You remember that sometimes the most healing thing you can offer is your calm presence, not your urgent advice. And in that presence, something amazing begins to happen. You start to relate to others from peace, not pressure, from curiosity, not judgment, from trust, not fear. You stop needing everyone to be okay before you can relax. You stop needing them to be like you before you can feel safe. You stop demanding that they move through life the way you do, and instead, you marvel at how different we all are, and how beautiful that is when we stop resisting it. You may still care deeply. You may still hurt when someone you love is lost in their own struggle. But the hurt is no longer panic. It's no longer a call to action. It's a tender knowing that life is hard for everyone, and that you can still be kind without being controlling. You can still offer love without stepping in as the rescuer. You can still stay present without losing your center. Tonight, as you breathe and reflect, notice the places where you are still gripping someone else's story. Notice the pressure you carry around, who should be different, who should have changed by now, who should be more aware, more open, more available. Notice the fatigue that comes from carrying what was never yours. And then, gently, lay it down. You are not responsible for the timing of other people's growth. You are not the director of their movie. You are just another actor, trying your best, learning your own lines, walking your own arc. Let them be who they are. Let them walk as they walk. Let yourself soften around their process. The moment you release the urge to interfere, you begin to breathe in a different rhythm. One that isn't tangled in their outcome. One that doesn't crumble every time they disappoint you. One that can hold space without falling apart. And in that rhythm, you find something you thought you had to fight for. Peace. Not because everything is fixed, but because you no longer need it to be. When you let others be themselves without interference, something within you begins to breathe more deeply. The energy you once spent trying to fix, shape, and persuade flows back to you. It doesn't mean your heart shrinks. It means your presence expands. You stop standing in front of others like a shield, and instead you become space. But this space isn't empty in a lonely way. It's empty in a sacred way. And this is where the next shift begins. The ego starts to loosen, the noise begins to thin, and you start to notice how life moves through you most clearly when you're not trying to be anything at all. When you stop trying to be the source of wisdom, wisdom starts moving through you. There is a kind of silence that holds more power than 1,000 words, a kind of emptiness that is not absence, but openness. This is not the emptiness of loss, it is the emptiness of readiness, the state in which nothing clings, and because nothing clings, everything flows. This is the nature of becoming a hollow bamboo, an image often used in spiritual traditions to describe the person who has released the grip of ego so fully that they become a vessel for something greater than their own preferences. The bamboo does not produce music on its own. It is not impressive for its color or its design. What makes it sing is its hollowness. The space inside is what allows breath to become melody. And in the same way, what makes a human being a channel for wisdom, peace, and clarity is not how much they know or how loudly they speak. It is how little they resist the flow of life through them, how empty they are of fixed identity, how hollow they are of self-importance, how free they are from needing to be impressive. We are trained to fill ourselves with opinions, roles, beliefs, defenses, and identities. We are told that a strong person is full of certainty, full of plans, full of goals, full of answers. But when you are too full, there is no room for truth to land. There is no space for intuition to speak. There is no passage for grace to move through. You become dense, rigid, unmoving. Wisdom doesn't rise in a crowded mind. It rises in the clearings, the moments when you are not trying to be someone, when you are not arguing with the world, when you are simply still and open. This openness is not passive. It is alive. It is alert. It is the silence before action, the breath before speech. It listens more than it explains. It receives more than it demands. And in this stillness, clarity begins to move, not as something you invent, but as something that passes through you like wind through reeds. To become like hollow bamboo is to stop interrupting the music, to stop controlling every note, to stop inserting your own fear into every silence. You let go of the need to dominate the conversation, You let go of the impulse to prove your worth. You let go of the reflex to insert yourself where life is asking you to step back. You do not vanish. You become more real, because without the weight of trying to be right, you can be truthful. Without the heaviness of trying to be wise, you can be sincere. Without the armor of trying to be seen, you become transparent enough for life itself to shine through. People begin to feel calm around you, not because you give them answers, but because you are not adding to their noise. You are holding space. You are not demanding attention. You are becoming still enough for them to hear their own clarity rise. This kind of inner emptiness doesn't mean apathy. It means availability. It means you are not trapped in rehearsed responses. You are not attached to being the teacher. You are not addicted to the role of fixer, hero, or expert. You can walk into a moment without needing it to confirm your identity. And that freedom allows you to respond, not from ego, but from presence. Every great teaching flows from this space. Every act of compassion arises from this openness. You can only give what you're not clinging to. You can only serve when you're not proving anything. You can only love when you're not protecting an image. The more you empty, the more you become a vessel. And the more you become a vessel, the less friction there is between you and the world. Friction comes from ego, when the mind says, "This moment should serve me." Peace comes from emptiness, when the heart says, "Let me serve this moment." And service does not mean sacrifice. It means availability. It means showing up without agenda. It means letting life move through you without always asking what's in it for you. This is not easy. The ego doesn't want to be hollow. It wants to be heard. It wants to be praised. It wants to be right. It wants to be in charge. And so it resists silence. It fills every moment with interpretation, every pause with fear, every interaction with judgment. But the more you sit with this, the more you notice the weight of ego. You start to feel how loud it is, how busy it is, how exhausting it is to carry the need to be someone important all the time. And eventually, something softens. You don't need to fight the ego. You don't need to shame it. You just stop believing it so much. You stop letting it run the show. You stop handing it the microphone. You let the noise pass through, and you don't attach. You create more silence inside you, not a blank emptiness, but a sacred spaciousness, a room in which wisdom can enter without bumping into furniture. From this space, decisions become simpler. Not because everything is easy, but because you're no longer complicating life with your identity. You can say yes or no without guilt. You can speak truth without performance. You can hold joy without needing to post about it. You can move through your life without narrating it constantly. The self you thought you had to protect begins to dissolve, and in its place, a deeper presence emerges. One that does not push, does not pull, does not cling. This is what it means to be hollow, not useless, not passive, but open. You don't need to be full of clever answers. You need to be clear enough to let wisdom rise when it's needed. You don't need to carry every situation. You need to be light enough for others to stand near without being crushed. You don't need to be anyone's guru. You just need to be still enough to hear what life is saying right now. And when you live like this, something shifts in your relationships. People feel less judged. They feel seen, not by someone who is superior, but by someone who is empty of comparison. Conversations lose their sharp edges.
Conflicts become gentler. You are no longer trying to control outcomes or defend your image. You are simply present, and in that presence, others soften too. The space you hold becomes medicine, not because of what you say, but because of what you're not doing. You're not inserting your fear into their story. You're not projecting your past onto their future. You're not stealing the silence with your conclusions. You're just being here, fully here, without noise. Tonight, let yourself become that kind of space. Let yourself feel the relief of not having to know everything. Let yourself drop the heavy shield of always being wise, always being impressive, always being right. Let yourself breathe into the hollowness, the soft, open space where life flows freely. You are not a finished sculpture. You are an open channel. You are not a final answer. You are a living question. You are not the music. You are the flute. And the less you try to control the song, the more beautifully it plays through you. Let the wind pass through. Let the silence speak. Let life move through your open hands. As the ego loosens and you stop forcing yourself to be wise, you begin to sense how much lighter life becomes when you no longer try to be the source of everything. Instead of building an identity from effort, you become a space that life moves through naturally. But even within that peace, something else waits quietly to be healed. The chronic hunger for more. The pressure to upgrade, to accumulate, to perfect. And tonight, you'll begin the slow, radical practice of releasing that pressure and learning to stand still inside the beauty of enough. Always needing more is the fastest way to miss the life you already have. There is a deep restlessness in the modern world, and it doesn't come from failure. It comes from the belief that whatever you have right now, who you are, what you've done, what you're feeling, is not enough. There's this quiet voice in the background that says more will finally be the answer. A little more money, a little more recognition, a little more certainty, a little more love. It all sounds reasonable, but the truth is, no amount of more will ever feel like enough if you don't learn to see the value in what is already here. That's the trap, thinking that fulfillment is just one step ahead. One achievement, one relationship, one self-improvement project away. And so you keep moving, chasing, accumulating, adjusting, never quite settling into the moment because you're waiting for the next one to finally feel whole. It's exhausting, not because you're broken, but because you were never designed to live in constant pursuit. You were meant to stop sometimes, to rest, to breathe, to look around at your life and say, "This is enough." But that sentence is hard to say when you've been trained to think it's lazy, or dangerous, or complacent. The world glorifies the hustle. It makes discontent seem virtuous. If you're not chasing something, you're falling behind. If you're not improving, you're decaying. So you begin to attach your worth to your pace, your peace to your progress, and it becomes harder and harder to sit still, to appreciate the quiet victories, to be with your life without comparing it to someone else's highlight reel. Contentment is not a weakness. It is one of the most powerful states a human being can access, because it doesn't numb you, it wakes you up. It doesn't make you passive, it grounds you in presence. It allows you to stop measuring your life like a scorecard and start living it from the inside out. It doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you stop running away from yourself while you grow.
It doesn't mean you settle for scraps. It means you finally stop starving in the middle of a feast. The hunger for more will always whisper. That voice doesn't disappear overnight, but the more you practice contentment, the less convincing it becomes. You begin to notice how that voice promises happiness and delivers emptiness. You begin to see how the next thing never quite satisfies the way it said it would. You begin to feel the weight of constantly seeking, constantly adjusting, constantly needing your life to be different in order to feel at peace. And then you start to do something revolutionary. You start to pause. You start to look around and notice the blessings that don't shout, the breath that continues without being asked, the roof that held up all night, the person who smiled at you today, the food that gave you energy, the memory that reminded you of who you are. These things don't look like success stories, but they are the roots of your peace. And once you see them, you begin to shift. The mind that only saw lack starts to see presence. The heart that only felt pressure starts to feel grace. This shift is not dramatic. It is quiet and repetitive. You will need to remind yourself again and again that it is okay to stop, that it is safe to feel enough, that your life does not have to become a performance. It can be a prayer, a soft thank you whispered to the ordinary, a deep breath given to the morning light, a gentle smile toward a version of yourself you are still learning to love. You will still grow. You will still heal. You will still learn. But the pace will feel different. There is no whip behind your back anymore. There is no deadline tied to your worth. There is just a steady unfolding. A way of living that says you can be both in progress and in peace at the same time. That you can dream and still be deeply grateful for today. That you can want things without needing them to feel whole. Contentment creates space, and in that space, your nervous system begins to settle. Your breath softens. Your sleep deepens. Your relationships become less strained. You stop needing people to act a certain way in order to feel secure. You stop needing your bank account or your body or your productivity to prove that you are okay. You start trusting that okayness can exist right now, even in imperfection, especially in imperfection. This doesn't mean you stop striving. It means you start striving from a different place, not from lack, but from fullness. You begin to create because you're inspired, not because you're insecure. You begin to move toward goals because they light you up, not because you're trying to outrun your fear of being unworthy. You begin to contribute not from exhaustion, but from joy. Contentment gives you back your power, not the kind that dominates, the kind that liberates. You begin to feel a steady resilience that isn't based on outer success. You begin to recognize joy in places you used to overlook. You become easier to be around, not because you lower your standards, but because you stop judging everything as not enough. You begin to feel lighter, even when life is heavy, because your peace is no longer so fragile. Tonight, as you rest, notice where the craving for more still lives in your body, where it tightens, where it whispers, where it tells you that this isn't it, that something out there still needs to happen. And then, gently, without forcing, Bring your attention back to what is already here. The fact that you are breathing. The fact that you are aware. The fact that this moment is real, and it does not need to be different to be sacred. You don't have to reject your desires. Just stop being owned by them. Let them come, let them go, but never forget to meet the moment you're in. Because this one, right now, is part of your life too. And you don't have to wait to feel content. You only have to look with new eyes. Contentment is not the end of effort. It is the end of self-punishment. It is the end of chasing peace as if it's a prize, and the beginning of remembering that peace is something you return to, not something you earn. And you can return now, without guilt, without needing permission, because you were never missing anything. The more deeply you allow yourself to feel the quiet power of contentment, the more you begin to notice something else dissolving too. A constant, hidden tension you may not have seen clearly until now. The tension of needing to know. The pressure of needing certainty. The fear that without guarantees, everything might fall apart. Contentment softens the need for more, but what about the need for control over what comes next? That's where the next transformation begins, not in solving the unknown, but in learning how to meet it with something completely different than fear. Peace doesn't come from knowing what will happen, it comes from no longer needing to. There is a kind of fear that lives in the cracks of every uncertain moment. It doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just hums in the background. A tightness in the chest, a racing thought in the middle of the night, a subtle urge to plan 10 steps ahead even when nothing can be predicted. It tells you that if you don't figure it out now, you won't be safe. If you don't get the answer soon, everything will fall apart. It paints the unknown as dangerous and treats every pause as a threat. But what if the fear is not about what's coming? What if the fear is simply your resistance to not knowing? The truth is, uncertainty is not the enemy. It is the nature of reality. Everything is always changing. Life is constantly moving, adjusting, shifting, unfolding in ways no one can fully predict. And yet, you've been taught to resist this. You've been trained to treat the unknown like something that must be conquered or controlled. You've been encouraged to demand certainty before you relax, to build rigid plans around outcomes that aren't guaranteed. But this way of living keeps the mind clenched, the body tense, and the heart waiting endlessly for a clarity that may never come. Learning to love uncertainty is not about giving up on structure. It's about releasing the fantasy that structure equals safety. It's about letting go of the idea that life can be locked into a script. When you open to the unknown, not as a problem to solve, but as a space to explore, something profound begins to shift. Your fear begins to turn into curiosity. Your anxiety begins to soften into presence. Your need to rush is replaced with the willingness to see. Curiosity is the antidote to fear, not because it gives you answers, but because it changes your posture toward the question. It doesn't demand a resolution. It doesn't need a guarantee. It just opens. It listens. It leans in. When you bring curiosity to uncertainty, you stop bracing for impact and start witnessing what is unfolding. You stop treating the future like an enemy and start engaging it as a dance.
This doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you begin to see fear as a signal, not a stop sign. Fear says, be careful. Curiosity says, pay attention. Fear freezes. Curiosity breathes. And the more you breathe in the face of not knowing, the more you start to build a nervous system that is not built around panic. You start to trust yourself, not because you have the answers, but because you know you can stay present even without them. Uncertainty can become a doorway instead of a wall. A place where possibilities live. A space where rigid identities soften. A pause where wisdom can enter. But only if you stop demanding that it look a certain way. Only if you stop seeing the unknown as something to fear and start seeing it as the one place where everything new, alive, and real must begin. The mind will still try to predict. That's its job. It will still ask, what if this happens, and what if that goes wrong? That's okay. The practice is not to shut down the mind. The practice is to sit beside it, to answer its panic with patience, to meet its questions with kindness, to hold space for the thoughts without getting swept away by their urgency. You can acknowledge the fear without giving it the keys. You can plan for the future without becoming imprisoned by it. You can want clarity without turning that desire into a demand. The unknown is not something you have to figure out all at once. It's something you get to explore one breath at a time. And that's where freedom lives. Not in the promise of certainty, but in the relationship you build with uncertainty itself. A relationship based on trust, not control. On presence, not prediction. On being with what is, even when you don't know what's coming next. Letting go of the need to know doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because now your power is rooted in flexibility, in responsiveness, in intuition. You begin to act from alignment instead of reactivity. You begin to choose with awareness instead of desperation. You begin to relate to the future with openness instead of dread. And from this openness, peace grows. Not because nothing bad will ever happen again, but because you no longer abandon yourself the moment things become unclear. You stay, you breathe, you listen. You trust the part of you that has already walked through unknown moments and found the ground beneath your feet anyway. You remember that every chapter of your life that taught you something real began with not knowing how it would end. Tonight, let yourself rest in that kind of trust. Not the kind that promises everything will go your way, but the kind that knows you will be okay even when it doesn't. Let yourself feel the difference between planning and clinging. Let yourself notice the places where your mind is still waiting for certainty before it gives you permission to relax. And then ask a new question. What if I could begin to relax now? You don't need to have the answers to be at peace. You just need to stop resisting the question. Let it sit beside you. Let it breathe with you. Let it remind you that not everything that's unclear is dangerous. Some things are just waiting to unfold, and your job is not to rush that unfolding. Your job is to meet it with attention, with breath, and with the quiet courage of someone who no longer needs every step to be lit in order to move forward. This is not recklessness. This is trust in motion. This is surrender with awareness. This is the beginning of a new way to walk through life. Eyes open, heart steady, hands not clenched around the future,
but open to receive it. You can live like this. You already are. Every breath is uncertain, and yet it comes. Every heartbeat is not promised, and yet it continues. The world is built on unknowns, and yet here you are, still learning, still moving, still capable of joy. Let the unknown become your teacher, not your tormentor. Let it teach you how to stay, how to soften, how to open. Let it show you the beauty that only emerges when nothing is certain. Let it reveal the part of you that was never afraid to begin again. Because that part of you is still here, and it's ready to walk into the next moment without a map. Not because it knows what's ahead, but because it finally knows how to trust what's within. Once you begin to trust the unknown, once you stop gripping the future with white knuckles and start meeting it with curiosity, another shift begins deep inside you. You realize life was never asking you to hold everything alone. It was inviting you into something gentler, something that doesn't need to be loud, impressive, or recognized to matter. A different kind of strength starts growing, not from controlling outcomes, but from offering yourself quietly to life, piece by piece, moment by moment. And this is where the healing of silent service begins. The heart grows lighter, not when it is praised for helping, but when it helps and asks for nothing in return. There is a hidden weight that grows when life becomes about being seen, validated, and approved. Even acts of goodness can carry this burden when they are performed for applause. Even kindness can lose its sweetness when it is tangled with the need to be acknowledged. And without noticing, the mind can turn even the most beautiful intentions into a transaction. I give, and I expect something back. Attention, gratitude, reputation, belonging. When those things don't arrive, disappointment creeps in, quiet resentment builds, anxiety whispers that maybe you're invisible, maybe you don't matter, maybe you should try harder next time. But there is another way to live, a way that does not tie your heart into knots waiting for recognition, a way that heals the anxious need to prove yourself over and over. It is the path of silent service, serving not for reward, but because it is your nature to give, helping not because it will be noticed, but because it feels natural to ease the burdens of others where you can, letting your goodness flow like a river that nourishes without demanding thanks from the trees. Silent service is not about shrinking or hiding. It's about offering. Offering your presence, your care, your attention without turning it into a currency. It is the kind of giving that doesn't announce itself, the kind of kindness that doesn't carry a scoreboard, the kind of generosity that doesn't make noise but still reshapes the world in unseen ways. When you live like this, something heavy falls away. You stop carrying the invisible ledger that tracks who owes you what. You stop scanning every action to see if it's enough to be loved. You stop needing every good deed to be witnessed in order to feel real. You begin to understand that service, in its purest form, is not a transaction between egos. It is a transmission from life to life. Helping quietly does not make your actions smaller. It makes them deeper, because now you are not adding more noise to the world's endless clamor for attention. You are becoming a thread in the fabric of connection itself. You are healing not just others, but yourself. Because every time you act without needing reward, you untangle your heart a little more from the anxiety of needing to be seen. This doesn't mean you suppress your needs. It doesn't mean you deny your humanity. It means you recognize that your deepest fulfillment comes not from being admired, but from living in alignment with the goodness already inside you. It means you trust that your value is not measured by external applause, but by the quiet integrity of your own heart. There is a different kind of joy that rises when you give without needing anything back. A freer kind of happiness, a sturdier kind of peace. You smile at the stranger, not because it makes you a better person, but because it reminds you that kindness is your nature. You help carry a burden, not because you need to be praised, but because lifting it feels right. You offer your presence to someone struggling, not because it looks good, but because compassion flows more naturally than judgment when you let it. And over time, this way of living becomes less effort and more instinct. It becomes less about choosing to be good and more about remembering that you already are. The anxious self that worried so much about being enough, doing enough, being noticed enough, begins to dissolve. You are no longer performing goodness. You are embodying it. You are no longer exhausting yourself trying to be worthy. You are resting into the truth that you already belong. Silent service also protects your peace in a noisy world. Because when you are not acting for recognition, the absence of recognition doesn't wound you. When you are not giving to impress, the lack of applause doesn't drain you. You stay steady, you stay rooted, you stay free. You can offer your gifts, your care, your energy without tying yourself to the reactions of others. And this freedom lets you love more honestly. You stop helping people because you want them to change. You stop offering kindness with hidden strings attached. You stop needing to fix or rescue or be needed in order to feel valuable. You simply meet each moment with an open hand instead of a closed expectation. You let your kindness be unconditional, not because you are saintly, but because it feels lighter to love this way. There will still be times when the old patterns try to pull you back, when you notice yourself wondering if you're doing enough, if you're appreciated enough, if you matter enough. That's okay. That's just the mind's old habit. When you see it, you don't have to fight it. You can just smile softly and return to the simple truth. You are not here to earn love. You are here to give it, freely, quietly, deeply. Silent service is not about erasing yourself. It's about expanding your heart so wide that it no longer needs to make noise to be real. It's about trusting that small kindnesses ripple outward in ways you may never see. That every compassionate action leaves an imprint, whether anyone notices or not. That your life can be a blessing, not because it is broadcast, but because it is lived sincerely. Tonight, let yourself feel the peace that comes from this kind of giving. Let yourself imagine offering your attention, your care, your presence, without needing anything in return. Let yourself rest in the knowing that the quiet goodness you offer is enough. It always was. It always will be. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to be bigger. You don't need to be recognized to be real. Your kindness already matters. Your presence already counts. Your small acts of love are already shaping the world in ways you cannot measure. And the quieter your heart becomes, the louder your life will sing. You made it. You walked through some of the deepest truths life has to offer. Tonight, you let the weight of control loosen. You learned how to stop blaming, how to step away from hope and fear, how to quiet the endless what-ifs, how to soften your body, how to see problems for the illusions they are. You found the strength to reframe difficulty with compassion, to slow down when panic tried to speed you up, to dissolve the self-image that fed your fears, to trust the invisible seeds growing underground. You bowed to life instead of resisting it. You let go of the need to arrive anywhere. You weathered the storms of your mind. You learned to spot the ordinary miracles hiding in plain sight. You surrendered your timelines, released the need to control others, emptied yourself like hollow bamboo, discovered the strength of being content, turned fear of uncertainty into curiosity, offered your heart through silent service, and trusted in what cannot be seen. And slowly, gently, you return to something you never truly lost: peace. It's not some prize waiting at the end of a perfect life. It's been here, under the noise, the whole time. And now you know the way back. If this journey touched something inside you, leave a comment below and write, "I choose peace." I would love to see who felt the shift. And if you want to keep walking this path together, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you won't miss future videos full of wisdom to carry you even further. Thank you for being here, for opening your heart, and for remembering what truly matters. Until next time, rest well and live gently.